What's up? What's going on, YouTube?
Making myself crazy.
What's up, honey boo? Out of my mind.
Wrote it down and read it out, hoping it would save me.
I did not send out any invitation. So,
She made me feel like no.
I don't think we're going to have that many people on. But, just in case.
To myself. One, wait by the phone. You know she only calling cause she's drunk and alone. Two, don't let her ring. You have to kick her out again. And three, don't be afraid. She only gonna wake up in your bed in the morning. And you're under her. You
Right.
bleeding over her. I got no rules, I count. I got no rules, I count. I got no challenge myself. I got no rules, I count. I got a challenge myself. Hard for me to say this, but it's coming from my heart. It's been a long time coming, but we done been fell apart. Really wanna work this out. I don't think you're gonna change me. I do, but you don't. Think it's best we go our separate ways now. I should stay in this relationship when I'm hurting, baby. I ain't happy, baby, cause there's so many other things I gotta deal with. I think that you should let it go. Oh, your body to no, let it go, cause the party ain't. Oh no, you can have this place, let it go. Let it go. Let it burn. Ain't got no answers for yourself, but you hate the love we but you know that it's over. Let it burn. Let it burn. Now, bitch, you can fuck with me if you wanted to. These expensive, these is red bottoms, these is black shoes. Hit the style, give them both. I don't gotta choose. I'm cool. Cut a bitch off, so don't get comfortable. On dance now, I make money moves. I don't gotta dance, I make money moves. If I see you wanna speak, that means I don't fuck with you. She'll make bloody moves.
All right.
Honey, I don't like that wordless song, boo. Talking about bloody shoes. What kind of song is that?
It's a rap song.
Yeah, but I don't like it. It's wordly. And then you cursing on there. You ain't supposed to curse.
Sorry, Sister Billy Bertha May. All right, we have three viewers. Somebody just logged off. Welcome to Happy Holiday Season and Progressive Activism, and why you should be selective of who you work with in your activism. Uh-oh.
What, honey? I thought we was all in the truth and we was all brothers and sisters, honey. Aren't we all brothers and sisters at the Kingdom Hall? Every which way you go, we are everywhere, honey. In 222 lands, baby boo. That is how big we are. And we are one worldwide brotherhood with one language, boo. We all speak the same language, and therefore, boo, you can go to Russia, boo. You could just be stranded somewhere in Siberia, Russia, honey, and knock on a Jehovah Witness door, and you're going to be all right, boo, because they are from Jehovah, boo.
Really?
Yes, honey, boo. And that's the way it is in the XJW community, too, honey. We are all XJWs, honey, so we all need to work together, and we need to be together, and we need to, just do everything together because we are all XJWs. We all come from Jehovah's Witness.
Okay, anyway, enough of that. I had to turn the off button off. I had to turn the off button on her. Wait a minute, what? Anyway. How's it going? Let me check in with the live chat. Let me see who is in here. Today we're going to talk about the holiday season and activism. It does go together. It does go together. We've got Southern Boss Lady.
Hey, honey boo, and Sour Blaze Haze rocking out right now, boo. And Candace, let it burn, boo. And down with the tower, XJW. Happy holidays, everyone. I'm driving, so I will just listen for the child.
Okay, hope hope you have a safe driving trip. You know, we're gonna have a trip of our own here. Murray Crimmer, Candace Lambert says Murray Crimmer. Okay, not Merry Christmas, but Murray Crimmer. Okay, that's how we do in the South. You're in the South, right? In the dirty South. The remember that when it was called the dirty South? Dirty, dirty, dirty South. All right. All right. So thanks everyone for tuning in now and in the future. I appreciate all the viewers and listeners. Today, let's get right on to it. You know me, I'm going to have some books in most of my live streams that I'm ready to talk about. Okay. And I'm going to also be checking in back and forth into the live stream chat. Okay. All right. So for everybody who's a bookworm, I've got some books for ya.
Honey, all these worldly books ain't nothing but worldly books. They are not from Jehovah, boo. You need to go to jw.org only, boo.
Yeah, but what if my car needs a repair? You know, what if I need to change my oil or like, you know, change a tire and I don't know how to do that and I don't want to pay someone to do it. I'm told I can do it myself. JW.org isn't going to show you how to do that stuff.
Boo, you just trust in Jehovah, pray in Jehovah, and that oil will get fixed on its own, boo. I've seen it.
What? You've seen oil get fixed on its own?
Yes, honey, you ain't got no faith. Yeah, you do what Jehovah says and get on jw.org.
Whatever. Anyway, while she's on jw.org trying to figure out how to get her car to run, we're going to figure out how cults are run, how the cult mindset can follow you outside of the cult, outside of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I know cult, the C word, is a harsh word for a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, so please don't be put off by me using the C word, you know, but that's what it is. It is a cult. I like to be blunt, you know, I like to put things out there, and sometimes I can be quite harsh. You know, I'm totally aware of that side of myself, that I am not very well finessed in my delivery and presentation and communication sometimes with people. Okay, I'm very aware of that, and you know, as much as I work on it all the time, there are still many times I fall short and make mistakes. So I'm going to put it to you real blunt. For those of you who like blunt stuff, the Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult, C-U-L-T, okay? Now, if you take the L away and put an N, no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, we have Mind Control by Dr. Ha Ha Lung. Yes, that is a real author's name. I don't think it's the government name of this person. I think it's a pseudonym, but it is Dr. Ha Ha H-A-H-A Lung. Mind Control, the ancient art of psychological warfare. We're also going to explore a second book of his called Mind Penetration, the ancient art of mental mastery. This is also by Dr. Ha Ha Lung. Okay, he has quite a few books out there, but I think if you get one or two, you're going to have the gist of all of his books, because the other stuff is just basically repurposed and rehashed. Yeah. So if you have one or two main books, you're going to have most of what he's got to say in all of his books. The next one up is something that you probably already heard of, Stephen Hassan's Combating Cult Mind Control, the #1 best-selling guide to protection, rescue, and recovery from destructive cults. Okay, this is the 25th anniversary edition, revised and updated for today's new realities. He does not have that cult awareness network CAN, C-A-N, in the back of this one anymore, because that organization was bought out by Scientology shortly after he published his previous edition. So all the people that were looking for help to get out of a cult ended up calling a Scientology-run cult awareness network. Yeah. So that was not a very good thing there. But, you know, that was something he couldn't control. But in this 25th edition here, I think this is the third. I mean, this is the 25th anniversary edition, but I think this is the third edition or the second edition. Anyway, it's the new one, okay? And it has a lot more on Jehovah's Witnesses in here, okay? And it really helps you to look at and compare with some of the other ones like Scientology. And we've got Leah Remini doing some great things on A&E. So you can actually watch her show, read along in the book, and look at the patterns of cult and cultish mindsets. Okay. The next one, oh, I skipped one over here. The next book we're going to have is called Boundaries and Relationships, Knowing, Protecting, and Enjoying the Self by Charles L. Whitfield, MD. This book is quite worn out. My copy here. It has saved me. I'm going to be really detailed here about how this particular book has saved me. It has saved me money. It has saved me time. It continues to save me money and time. Okay. And this is real money I can take to the bank. It has saved me a lot of energy and attention, wasted energy and attention. It has helped me to eliminate things in my life, people, places, things, and mindsets that drain you, that are toxic. And it has enabled me, most importantly, to become a million times more self-aware. There's a lot of room for me to be more self-aware, and I'm probably less aware than I'd like to think. You know, we all would like to think the best of ourselves, right? And it hurts when you discover something negative about yourself, or it hurts maybe to see that you're not as sharp as you might have thought in this particular area in life. All right. You know, nobody wants to learn that they're wrong about something. It doesn't feel good. This helps you to be honest with yourself in a compassionate, in a gentle way, but very pure and sharp. You're not going to cover over things with this. This is this book here, Boundaries and Relationships. It took me, and I had already been out of the Jehovah's Witnesses for close to 15, 16 years. Okay. It took me about 3 years to finally get some idea of what boundaries were. 3 years. I went through this book. I read it from cover to cover. I went through it with highlighter. I have gone through this book probably at least 100 times over the years. This is something I go through every Christmas. I go through this whole book at least once again, every holiday season, okay? And you know why.
Why, honey? Why do you go through that? That worldly book. Give me that book. Let me see what it says. Let me see this book. What does it say? I lend people money and don't seem to get it back on time. No, boo, I ain't got that problem. When I lend people money, the brothers don't want to pay me back nothing. What? I wish they would give it to me late, boo. At least I'd be getting it late, boo. And then what is this here? What is this here? All these charts and the mental representations of these relationships are called objects by the object relationships theories. These representations are laden with feelings and tend to occur in part objects: good parent, bad parent, aggressive child, shy child. What? I don't know nothing about this psychobabble, boo. Get this book out of here.
All right, well, so you heard it from Sister Billy Bertha Mae Smith. She says she don't like boundaries in relationships, probably because they're non-existent in the Jehovah's Witness organization. So when we do come out of the organization, how many of us are going to counseling? How many of us are even daring to go to any kind of mental health professional? That's the boogeyman, right? Those are worldly people. They're going to steer you wrong. They're going to steer you away from Jehovah and from God. They're full of demons and Satan. So Boundaries and Relationships. That's one book by Charles L. Whitfield, MD. One of the reasons it's helped me is because you know, there were a lot of things I could get really angry about when I first came out of the religion. Okay, and I came out very early in my life. I think I came out at 21. So I still had a lot of my life to live, but it wasn't okay. I wasn't okay when I left. Um, I I had not only the cult to deal with, but also a very severely abusive personal home. And the elders would even have meetings with them to tell them to treat me better. And that's saying a lot for Jehovah's Witness folks. We all know how the elders see things, but I think they even realized the abuse and neglect to the point where they would have meetings with them. And I remember um, the incubator, the woman who gave birth to me, she was in the kitchen when she came home after that elders meeting, and she was very upset, and she kept saying, well, I guess he doesn't want me to pioneer anymore. He just wants me to sit at home with you all day. That's what she said to me. And I didn't say anything. I just watched her, and she kept saying that over and over. I guess he doesn't want me to pioneer for Jehovah anymore. He doesn't want me to serve Jehovah to the fullest anymore. He wants me to sit here at home with you all day. He wants me to treat you better. She was talking about the presiding overseer because he had actually called an elders meeting with her and the step person. That's what I refer to him as, in a neutral way. Okay, I would like to refer to him as other things and to her, but I'm going to call him the step person because my father and my dad is a different man, and he was never a fatherly person. He's never been, neither has she been a motherly person. But him, all throughout my childhood, I always saw him not as an adult because he was very petty and childish, um, very, very petty and childish, and in a violent way. It's like if you were the first to accidentally drink out of his new coffee cup that he bought somewhere, his football coffee cup, he'd get the belt out. And you had no way of knowing. There's a cup that was in the cup cabinet. You drink out of it. You didn't know that you weren't supposed to drink out of it, that you were supposed to wait till someone else first drinks out. So yeah. But in any case, she sat there in the kitchen just talking about how this presiding overseer and these elders just didn't want her to pioneer anymore. I guess, she said, I guess they don't want me to serve Jehovah anymore. And so it was between serving Jehovah and actually being a better parent. And how Jehovah's Witnesses are. They're not going to call the police on abuse on any kind. They don't even call the police on murderers. They find out there's a murderer there that no one knows about. They're not going to call the police. And I've got court documents to prove that. So you just let me know in the comments if you think it's a lie. And you include your email address, and I will email you a nice resource kit with a document to prove that and a whole other slew of nice references. All right, we've got 7 viewers. Let's take a look at the live chat. We have Sour Blaze Haze. I like that, Sour Blaze Haze. What is that, a Sour Blaze Haze? Is that something green and sticky and dank? All right, we've got Candace Lambert, went to counseling to deprogram. Sour Blaze says, went to counseling too, helped a lot, but they still have power over me. Okay. Candace is laughing, saying, did you say incubator? Yes. I said incubator. Hey, Gary. Gary is in here. I psychoanalyzed the counselor on my job. She was Brazilian. I quit, and Gabrielle wouldn't stop calling me at home for a year. She was born December 25th. I'm really good. I don't know. You psychoanalyzed your counselor on the job, and she was Brazilian, and she stalked you too? Dang. You got some mojo, huh, Gary? I had a counselor stalk me. She did. I'm going to tell you about her, but I want to mention this last book, Becoming the Narcissist's Nightmare: How to Devalue and Discard the Narcissist While Supplying Yourself. And this one is by someone called Shahida Arabi. I'm going to spell this one for you. S is in Sam, H is in Harry, A is in Adam, H is in Harry, I is in Ivan, D is in David, A is in Adam. Shahida, right? Arabi, Arabi. A is in Adam, R is in Richard, A is in Adam, B is in boy, I is in Ivan. Okay? All right. Number one bestseller in personality disorders, abuse and sexual abuse. I ordered the CD, the audio version of it too, which is great. It is about 508 pages. She has an okay bibliography. You know, she references a lot of websites. Let me see. She does have some trade journals that she mentions, psychology trade journals. So it's a respectable book, I believe. It's a respectable book. There is quite a bit of redundancy, but I think when it comes to understanding narcissism, and if you have had to deal with a true narcissistic personality in your life, like I have, then you can't read enough about it. You know, it's just such a complex experience, and it's a very damaging one. People, victims and survivors of narcissists, malignant narcissists, and malignant narcissists are a step more extreme than your regular old garden variety narcissists. Now, we all tend to have flavors of narcissism. We all have varying degrees of narcissism. You need a certain degree of healthy self-interest to survive. You know, otherwise you would just lay on the floor and literally let people just step all over you and pee all over you and whatever else they decided to want to do. So you do need some healthy ego balance, but it has to be in the middle between self-interest and interests for looking out for others, you know. And it's a challenge for all of us, but some individuals are way on the self-interest end. However, they are very adept at mimicking patterns that trigger certain reactions in regular healthy people. They don't have empathy, they don't have a conscience, and when they do things that are nice for you, they're not because they're doing it for you. There's something in it for them first. You might not even be aware of. And narcissistic supply is the ultimate. Yes, they also might want money or power or sex, or they're violent, but it is energy that they're feeding off of. And it's called narcissistic supply. And it's a type of attention. So, for example, they will suck up admiration just as much as they will suck up hatred. It doesn't matter to them as long as they've got you and they've got a way to get under your skin. That's the name of the game. Narcissists will study you much better than you'll be aware of yourself. That's why the key to dealing with a narcissist, and in a nutshell, is what this book is telling you, and all these other books as well, including Stephen Hassan, is to practice self-awareness on a daily basis. Know yourself, because the narcissist is sitting there studying you for your weaknesses and vulnerabilities that they're going to be able to use as leverage and control and power over you. And like I said, it might translate into things like money and things like that. But emotional, psychic control over your emotional state is what they love. They love it. So once again, they'll take hatred and derision as much as they'll take admiration and love. It doesn't matter to them. They're narcissists. They don't process emotions the same way. And these people don't change. They can play the game with you and have you think that they will, but you're going to spend many years hoping and going back and forth with these people through drama after drama after drama after drama until you're fucking dead, one way or another. And you might not be physically dead, but you're drained. You got no life or spirit left anymore. Soul murder is what it's called. So if you've been soul murdered, check out Shahida Arabi, Becoming the Narcissist's Nightmare, How to Devalue and Discard the Narcissist While Supplying Yourself. Okay. Check out Boundaries and Relationships, Knowing and Protecting and Enjoying the Self by Charles L. Whitfield. Combating Cult Mind Control, Stephen Hassan, #1 best-selling guide to protection, rescue, recovery from destructive cults. Mind Control by Dr. Ha Ha Lung, The Ancient Art of Psychological Warfare. Mind Penetration, The Ancient Art of Mental Mastery by Dr. Ha Ha Lung. Now, if you are a photo reader, photo reading is not speed reading, although it goes well with it. If you are a photo reader, you can syntopic read, photo read these books because they're all on mental health or dealing with cults, setting boundaries, being safer within your own self, okay? They deal with the mind and that good stuff. So if you don't know what photo reading is, check out photoreading.com by Paul Sheely. The book you can order on Amazon. I think used, it's like a penny. Last time I went in there, they had a couple of them used for a penny or two, and then the shipping was $3.99, you know. Or you could check it out at your local library. You can go to WorldCat, WORLDCAT.org. Put in your zip code, put in the title, photo reading, author Paul Sheely, SCHEELE, okay? Or you can go to photoreading.com and order it directly from them. So there's that. So let's see what the live chat has to say. Oh, we've got 411 Big Boss. Hey, Honey Boo. Hey, Honey Boo. And Sarah Pettigrew. Boom, honey. So thank you for tuning in. We have 4 people watching now. Really? I thought, what happened to all the people? Well, we got 4 viewers. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. 4 viewers. All right. And I want to thank all of the future listeners and viewers. What does Sour Blaze Hayes say? Can you list the books in description later? Yeah, I'll do that. I'll list the books. I'll put it in the description. And that way, you know, you can just snag it from there whenever you need it, and people can go back and forth. All right, so I'm going to take a quick break. My mouth is super dry, and I've got a glass of wine in the freezer. And then I want to show you something about the first crucial reason why you should be selective on who you work with when you do activism. And I'm going to take it further and say this can be applied to anywhere. Who you work with as a client, if you are a business owner, it's very, very important. And also who you work with on the job. You know, I know sometimes you can't control who you're assigned to work with, but these points here will help you to determine if you're on the job hunt and you're looking for a job. It can help you to weed out the duds or the places where you're most likely not going to be happy. And you can see the early red flags early enough so you won't even waste a lot of time, energy, and money trying to get your foot in the door with a company that you later regret having signed on with. And if you're working at a place that you don't like, maybe this can help you to figure out why. And maybe you start realizing that the reasons you had that you didn't like are actually legitimate, and it might be time to look for a different place. I know that's easier said than done, but hey, I'm going to put the info out there. We're going to go through it in just a minute. All right.
Oats contain a soluble fiber called.
As soon as the commercial ends. All right. I don't have my DJ stuff today, but I'm gonna get it together. I promise. Here we go.
Baby girl wanna choose me, she wanna use and abuse me. I know she wanna tax me, I know she wanna sex me. 50,000 like a Netflix, fuck her once like Netflix. My nigga, who would've thought? My nigga, who would've thought now? I be right back with the top, I be right back with the top down. I put your girl on my finger, blow my phone like she's single, blow my phone like I'm single. Somebody needs to come get her with the curve. I know you don't deserve it, no you don't deserve it. I got that work. I know you want the Birkin, baby, are you worth it? With the curve, I know you don't deserve it, no you don't deserve it. She do it all for the Fendi, she do it all for the Gucci. Baby girl wanna choose me, she wanna use and abuse me. I know she wanna tax me, I know she wanna sex me. 55 make a neck freeze, fuck her once like Netflix. My nigga, who would've thought? My nigga, who would've thought now? I be right back to the top, I be right back to the top now. I got your girl on my finger, blow my phone when she single, blow my phone like I'm single. Somebody needs to come get her with the curve. I know you don't deserve it, no you don't deserve it. I got that work. I know you want the Birkin, baby, are you worth it? With the curve. I know you don't deserve it, no you don't deserve it. I got that work. I need to know certain. Tell me, are you worth it? She do it all for the Fendi, she do it all for the Gucci. Baby girl wanna choose me, she wanna use and abuse me. I know she wanna tax me, I know she wanna sex me. 55 make a Netflix, fuck her once like Netflix. My nigga, who would've thought? My nigga, who would've thought now? I'll be right back to the top, I'll be right back to the top now. Got your girl on my finger, blow my phone like she's single, blow my phone like I'm single. Somebody needs to come get her with the curve. I know you don't deserve it, no you don't deserve it. I got that work. I know you want the Birkin, baby, are you worth it? With the curve. I know you don't deserve it, no you don't deserve it. I got that word. I need to know certain. Tell me, are you worth it? She do it all for the Fendi, she do it all for the Gucci. Baby girl wanna choose me, she wanna use and abuse me. I know she wanna tax me, I know she wanna sex me. 50,000 make a neck freeze, fuck her once like Netflix. My nigga, who would've thought? My nigga, who would've thought now? I'll be right back to the top, I'll be right back to the top now. Got you blow my finger, blow my phone like she's single, blow my phone like I'm single. Somebody needs to come get her with the curve. I know you don't deserve it, no you don't deserve it. I got that work. I know you want the Birkin, baby, are you worth it? With the curve. I know you don't deserve it, no you don't deserve it. I got that word. I need to know certain. Tell me, are you worth it?
I stumbled warm last night. When you showed out on this big girl, you performed last night. That's why you deserted first class flight. Goodbye, cause I just quit your thirst last night. I'm in Dubai. Somebody tell the prince that the keeping has arrived. If I looked over here, I probably have 100 wives. Walking in the club and they like Gucci.
Well, turn that wordly mess off. I don't like that. I don't like that wordly rap music. I don't like listening to that. You need to be listening to Jehovah, Jehovah, Jehovah. Jehovah, 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 Jehovah.
All right, so I'm back. I have had a short break. Thank you. We have 2 viewers right now. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you tuning in. And now we're going to get right to it. All right. Mind Control, the Ancient Art of Psychological Warfare by Dr. Ha Ha Lung. Okay. And I'm on page 46. Page 46. All right. Now, the reason I'm on this page is because this happens not just in the Jehovah's Witness community, and we're going to cover specifically at least one instance that this happens. I'm going to give you specifics, and then I'm also going to give you specifics of that instance happening in other groups, including in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community here on YouTube. Okay? So, this is the part called blood ties. Blood ties. Blood and ties. Now, I don't know if you guys ever had any of this, but I grew up in Europe as part of my life I've spent in Europe. And in my childhood, I remember my friends and I, we would make these pacts. And you know, one boy would say, we all got to promise not to tell anyone this secret, and we got to swear it in blood. So they cut their finger, the tip of their finger. Everyone would cut the tip of their finger, and then, you know, we would put the tips of our fingers together and swear to never tell of something. And you know, it wasn't anything bad. A lot of times we would like play some kind of treasure hunt, and you know, somebody would have my friend, he had like this two he had these coins. They were unique special coins, and they were, I guess, maybe worth at the time $20 or $30. So he had these coins that he had, and we all swore that we would not ever tell anybody that he had this in a treasure box, and we all put a piece of something that was valuable of our own stuff in that treasure box in his treehouse. So that was a sort of blood tie. We had a secret, and that connected us together, you know. And that is a human tendency. It can work for you. It can be used in a positive way, or it can also be used in a negative way. So I want to let you know that these methods aren't necessarily evil or bad in the sense that electricity isn't evil or bad, but you can kill people with electricity. And we do. We fry criminals. Sometimes we fry innocent people. You know, that's how it is. The law is never perfect, and that's a terrible thing. But nonetheless, if we were to call electricity evil, it would be insane. It'd be stupid. It's the people using the electricity. And this is the same way. When you use mind control on yourself, when the focus and the locus of control of the mind control is with you, and it is geared from you to you, then that can be a beneficial thing. But now when it is projected to someone else, when it is coming from the external, that's when there is cult. Then when it's a cult, there's a problem. So check this out. As the name implies, blood ties tie you to another person or to a group because they know some deep, dark secret about you. Simply put, blood ties are just another, albeit specific type of blackmail. Cults, savage street gangs, and killer cadre require prospective members to make their bones. That is, to do crimes or commit heinous and taboo acts, up to and including murder, to prove their dedication and loyalty to Jehovah. The real purpose of demanding such, he didn't put Jehovah there, I just put that there, okay? But anyway, the real purpose of demanding such acts from recruits is to give the person running the show a sword of Damocles they can hold over the new member's head. This is how they get you locked in. Okay? Ironically, this kind of test in itself indicates an inherent weakness in the group and their leader, that their teaching and or claim of brotherhood or togetherness in of itself isn't enough to ensure the loyalty of their members. So whenever someone has done this, whenever a group of people are getting you to do these blood ties with them. And this doesn't have to be murder now, you know. When I mentioned YouTube, that this happens on YouTube here, and I don't think it just happens in the EXJW community. It's a natural human tendency. It's a you know, it's a dysfunctional it's a dysfunctional way of doing it when people use it to try to coerce and control others. But I don't think it's just in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. So don't think that we as a community are afflicted with something terrible here. Yes, it's not good. Yes, it's dangerous and it's hurtful and toxic. But this I've seen in so many other user interest communities on the internet that I've been a part of for many years. So nothing out of the ordinary, okay? But yeah, it is something to learn about and to work on. So let's see. I want to reiterate this. When these groups do this, when a person is trying to get you to do blood ties or has done something to get you to do blood ties with them, understand that the ironic thing is that this kind of test in itself indicates an inherent weakness in the group and in their leader. So this person or this group is actually weak. Yeah, because they're teaching the way that they're doing things, their method or their brotherhood or their, you know, whatever they call themselves, the group, the union, the family, in of itself isn't enough to ensure the loyalty of their members. So it's an insecurity now that you've seen. Even if they've got you latched in blood ties, understand that now I've given you the key to seeing something you might not have seen before, you see. So while you might have felt powerless if you didn't want to be part of that group, now there is something there for you to take another look at. Okay, this is page 46 in Mind Control, The Ancient Art of Psychological Warfare by Dr. Ha Ha Lung, and it is under the section of blood ties. All right, so let's go further. Depending on the particular group, these blood tie tests range from the bizarre to the brutal and bloody. For example, two killers committing a murder often make sure both of them pump bullets into the victim, so both have as much to lose and to tell when caught. Likewise, cults often have members perform acts considered shameful by society standards. Now, check this out. This further helps the cult alienate the new recruit from civilized folk who would understandably look upon such taboo behavior with scorn and horror. Documented cult tests of this sort include taboo sexual practices up to and including incest and pedophilia. Now, who does that remind you of? Oh, geez, Jehovah's Witnesses. Ding, ding, ding. The pedophile database, Austrian Royal Commission, yeah. You know, the rampant problems that they have. But it says obsessive ritual cleansing, shaving of genitals, wiping with stones rather than toilet paper, and even self-mutilation up to and including castration. Okay, so it can be all of these things or even something less extreme. It doesn't even have to be this extreme. You know, it could be something like it says here, most times occults bizarre initiation rituals and inner teachings are kept secret supposedly because they are too sacred for the prying eyes of non-believers, but mainly because the cult's methods and mythologies are unable to stand up to the light of logic and are unacceptable, if not outright illegal by society's standards. So, like I said, it doesn't have to be that extreme. But let's look at that, incest and pedophilia. Jehovah's Witnesses have a two-witness rule that requires victims and survivors of child sexual abuse to produce two adult eyewitnesses before they even acknowledge it. Excuse me. Yet they refuse to report it to police and law enforcement, period. And all the elders have to enforce the two-witness rule, whether they're the pedophile or not. The congregation members have to support the elders on it. So Here now you have a shameful secret, because even though it's not secret, it's all over the internet. When confronted with this, they still pretend it's not true, and they still want to keep it secret. They still say, oh, I don't know what the two-witness rule is. Well, do you know who Jeffrey Jackson is? Oh, no, I've never heard of Jeffrey Jackson. I don't know who that is. You don't know your own governing body? Oh, yeah, I think I have heard of Jeffrey Jackson all of a sudden, right? So it's a shameful energy that they're bound to, and it's a stain. And that stain binds these people together in a sick way. That's a cult. That's the cult dynamic. All right. So on here it says, recall the Heaven's Gate UFO cult demanded first castration and ultimately suicide from its members. So it starts with something like the two-witness rule, and hiding murder and having a database, and it progresses. It's never enough for the organization or for the leader. Likewise, another UFO cult, Louis Farrakhan's so-called Nation of Islam, teaches its inner circle that a gigantic invisible spacecraft called the Mother Wheel, built by advanced Afrocentric technology, orbits the Earth. While Farrakhaners never tire of bragging among themselves how this stealth UFO will one day soon rain death and destruction down upon the Earth, cleansing it of all of the Nation of Islam's enemies, NOI members never discuss the Mother Wheel with outsiders and are understandably embarrassed when asked about this ridiculous belief. Well, I didn't know that. Well, I mean, I did. I've read this book many times, but before I read this book, I did not know that. Louis Farrakhan himself claims to have been taken aboard this UFO in 1985. See NOI's official newspaper, Final Call, November 1989. Belief in the Mother Wheel, sometimes called the Mother Plane and the Mothership, is bolstered by NOI's founder Elijah Poole's claim that the black race originated on the moon 66 trillion years ago. Whoa, what is he smoking? That sounds a lot like Scientology's Xenu. You guys know about that one, right? The alien Xenu. He's like the evil god of the universe that threw all these thetans on Earth. It's similar from the Bible, where like the angels were cast down from heaven to earth. Well, in Scientology, it's Xenu throwing them, and he's like this comic book character that L. Ron Hubbard like worked up and developed years before, and it didn't do very well in the comic book genre. He kind of sucked. He was a comic book writer and an artist or whatever, and he just really couldn't get the comic book thing together. He didn't make any money and flopped. It's a flopped career. And so he's like, oh yeah, well, you know what? The best business is a religion. That's a quote, by the way. He did say that. So, he's like, okay, I'm going to take these comic books. I'm going to fucking make a cult. Excuse my French. And I'm going to make loads of money, okay? And I'm still going to capture people's imagination, because that's what cults that's all they do. They just hijack your imagination, you see? That's the name of the game. That's the currency. Once they got your imagination by the ball, you're done for, because they're in your head. And the cult now is between your ears. It's like a virus. They inject the cult in between your ears to where now you carry on the work for them. And they just sit back and eat their popcorn and reap the benefits. Anyway, let's go on further here, because it gets really interesting at the bottom of this next page on 47. As with most cults, showing one face to the public while showing another, presumably your true face and intention, to your fanatical followers is a time-honored tradition with NOI leaders. Now, isn't that the same thing that Garrett Lurch did when he said he doesn't answer to Watchtower? And also when Jeffrey Jackson said at the Royal Commission that it was presumptuous to think that they were God's only chosen people and that they were the only channel to God. But yet, they show a different face to their followers. So this founder, Elijah Poole, and here we're talking about NOI, the Nation of Islam, okay? Elijah Poole, alias Elijah Muhammad, was himself a follower of a true black science mastermind called Noble Drew Ali, founder of the Moorish Science Temple. But when the time came for Poole to concoct a mystical lineage, quote unquote, for his newly found Nation of Islam in 1931, instead of crediting Ali with his instruction and inspiration, Poole manufactured a fictional member named W.D. Fard, nowadays written Farad. Today, while Nation of Islam revisionists go to great lengths to find candidates for a historical W.D. Fard, the true English, not Arabic, origin of the name Fard tells the real tale. Fard means to paint to face, to gloss over, especially to gloss over the truth. In other words, to wear one face for your followers while wearing another false face to the world at large. And that is what your governing body does, Jehovah's Witnesses. And they're not unique. Farrakhan and Nation of Islam, their leaders do it. Scientology does it. Mormons do it. It's nothing unusual, although it's very dysfunctional. And it's cult-like. All right, check this out. I'm going to have a sip of this wine here for a minute. Mm. 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 All right, check this out here. That being said, the history and mythology of the Nation of Islam is a required course of study for any serious student of cults, of understanding cults, of black science. With the possible exceptions of the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses, you'll not find a better, more bizarre example of a successful homegrown American religious cult. So that was funny that he mentions the Jehovah's Witnesses in this. This is Mind Control, the Ancient Art of Psychological Warfare by Dr. Ha Ha Lung, and it's page 46 and 47 under Blood Ties. All right, so let's check the live chat. Let's see what the live chat has to say about blood ties. All right, let's see. Sour Blaze Hayes says that was intense. Gary says you in the kitchen cut the calories. He says you got me viewing. That's 20. Does that sound narcissistic? You want to count for 20 viewers? All right, so Gary counts for 20 viewers, and we've got 3 watching. So with Gary counting for 20, I guess we'll say 23. 411 Big Boss says, so the payoff for them is attention, no matter if it's negative or positive. Flavors of narcissism. Yeah. It is attention. And the same thing is with cult leaders. Cult leaders are narcissists by nature. You can't be a cult leader and not be a narcissist. It just everything is for them. Everything has to be about them. And isn't that the life that you have to live for JW.org, for Watchtower, for Jehovah's Witnesses? Everything has to be, you have to live your life around the organization. And it takes away from you. It takes, and it doesn't give you anything. It wants you to go out from door to door. It wants you to stand next to carts and not get paid, not even be insured in case you fall. When you get old and sick, you can't go, you can't walk as much anymore. If you have an accident in the car, you have to pay your own gas, you have to buy your own clothes, you have to buy your own car and transportation, and you have to do it or else you're going to be killed by God. And you have to donate a sizable amount of your income, and don't try to work too much, because you need to put your time and energy into this here. Your life right now is not important. You'd wait till the new system, right, which is going to be here any second. But it's been 40-50 years since you've been doing this, but it's going to be here any second. It's going to be here any second. It's been here any second for 40 years, and it's going to be here any second for another 40 years. Honey, what kind of BS are you talking about? What kind of BS are you talking, honey, boo? All right, so let's go back to this. The The specific way that the blood ties are in the Jehovah's Witness organization, the way I see it, is the two witness rule is one thing. It's one example, because it opens the door for a lot of molesters to thrive, and they are confessing their things to these elders and leaders who may or may not be molesters themselves. And you have a breeding ground for this kind of blood ties, because this guy here, they know that he's had a problem with children, so he's gonna have to toe the line, because he knows that they know about him. What if they were to tell his wife or tell the police? He knows that he could go into prison. And more importantly, to that molester, is that his access to kids could be taken away.
What? You mean prison doesn't scare these people as much as that prospect?
Yep. So the fact that they give him access in the congregation to kids, on top of that, they help protect them, it's a paradise for these kinds of guys. And why would they ever speak out against that? And then you've got them in a blood tie, you see, and now you can exact whatever you want from that man. And eldership is all about power. It's all about a power struggle. You got more than two men in there. One is going to need to assert himself, to establish that he's the alpha. And if he's not a healthy type of alpha male, because alpha males can be healthy, they don't all have to be tyrants. Okay, it's about responsibility, strength, as well as compassion. But these types of alphas are usually not that healthy, because Jehovah's Witness mentality is not healthy. It's all about power, and so you can easily see how different types of scenarios could happen where these blood ties could influence them. You could have an elder an elder body that might have several child molesters on there. Maybe, let's say it's 7 of them, okay, in a congregation. 7 elders. I know it's a large number. I know these numbers are probably not in existence anymore because of the shrinking and closing down of all these kingdom halls everywhere, all over the world. Germany's already had over 500 closed down since the Australian Royal Commission. Somebody said that the Australian Royal Commission was a waste of time and nothing really happened. Nothing was changed. And I said, are you kidding me? Have you not heard about all the kingdom halls? Hundreds. There's 500 in Germany alone. I didn't even know Germany had that many kingdom halls. And they've been closed since the Australian Royal Commission. Are you kidding? You don't think that the Australian Royal Commission and what went on there and their documents and their findings didn't have some kind of bearing on the case in San Diego with Jose Gonzalez, is it? Padron? The $4,000 a day fine? You don't think that might have had some kind of influence? You don't think those judges have been told about the Australian Royal Commission? You don't think Erwin Zalkin knows this? You don't think their paralegals are all up in our groups with different decoy names, listening and commenting and trying to get info? We're not all ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. We're not all Jehovah's Witnesses in this community. There's a lot of other kinds of people that want information and that are in here too, listening and watching our videos, coming to our blogs and sites. But nonetheless, going back to the blood ties, I think there's also other things that elders make each other do and make other congregants do, when they have certain secrets. And like I said, they don't have to be all that extreme. Let's go to the EXJW community and things that we've noticed in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. Now, we all know of at least one person that we might have met in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community that for some reason or whatever, just isn't someone that you really want to spend a lot of time with, right? And maybe it's not really anything bad. You just don't fit. You're just not a good match, right? I mean, it happens. We're all different. Um, and then maybe you've met some people that you've outright regretted having gotten to know, and you have just don't want nothing to do with them. And that's okay too. There's all kinds of people, all kinds of reasons. So, having said that, um, I think when people come out of the Jehovah's Witness organization or Scientology or even a high control culture, cultures can be cult like. You have some cultures that where family is everything, no matter what, and you're expected to take all kinds of abuse from family because this person is genetically related to you, and I think that's cult like too. It certainly is a breeding ground for abuse, just like within the Jehovah's Witness. So you have these patterns in these group dynamics and family dynamics and society dynamics that you can look at, these patterns, and you can spot them very easily when other people try to use them on you in what they might call a social experiment. And this is something that we've seen in the XJW community, is that some people will do social experiments on other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses without their knowledge. And they will enlist their friends or people that are close to them in these social experiments that, had you known this was done to you, you wouldn't have liked it. Probably not, but you never ever get the chance to consent. I think that when you do a social experiment, I think they can be very controversial. You've got the Stanley Milgram experiment where they experimented. It's called the obedience experiment, and I think that was the first one was in the '60s, right? You can YouTube search it, Stanley Milgram obedience experiment, and then you've got the kind that where people aren't giving their consent. They don't know that a social experiment is being done on them. And a fine example of that is what people call MK Ultra, CIA doing all kinds of mind experiments on people. So I think that is a dangerous territory. Number one, it is a very dangerous territory for the other people. You could end up hurting someone really, really badly. And when you're doing social experiments on ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, these are people that are already at a disadvantage. They are survivors from a very, very nasty, extremely dangerous cult that hides serial murders along with pedophiles. And you're wanting to do social experiments on this community. I think you're heading into very, very dangerous territory there, because you could really end up hurting someone. You could end up driving someone to suicide. That is a very likely scenario. And, you could just be the last straw. You could just do something really silly in your social experiment where you wouldn't think, that would make anyone kill themselves. But you don't know what people are going through in their private lives. We all present a happier version for the most part on our social networks. We're not going to put out there when we are beat down to the ground and don't think we can't get up anymore. No one runs to their Facebook to post that. So you can't assume that just because you think you're okay with this, that everybody else would be okay with this, especially if you haven't even bothered to ask. Why would you not ask people's consent? Not ask people's consent to your social experiment. And then, not only that, but just like in true fashion here, the patterns are written out in these books. They elicit other people into this. And, we're all adults, but it's a way that they get people off guard. Maybe when someone's tired, or maybe when someone's under the influence of medication, or even if they've been drinking or whatever you have, right? And that person's a little bit more loose, and they're comfortable around you, right? They like you, it's easier to maybe sway them in a certain way. And if you have someone that's an ex-Jehovah's Witness that might have family shunning them, that stuff works on people's self-esteem. It works on their confidence. It nips away. I mean, you could be the most successful and the happiest person on freaking earth, but if your family's shunning you, if you're a healthy person, it's going to nip at you. It's going to take something away from you. That's just how it is. You have to face it. And when you have people, which a large portion of the EXJW community have no friends and no social support hardly. A lot of them are on government assistance, okay? I mean, you have all these things that nip away at a person's self-confidence already, and maybe they never even had any. Maybe they went through so much crap as a Jehovah's Witness, they never even had any, and here you are doing a social experiment where there's fighting. There's a manufacture of a fight, a manufacturing of a simulation for you to sit back and to study. And real people are getting angry. Their emotions of togetherness are being turned to anger or in the least discomfort. People, get uncomfortable when there's a fighting within the XJW community. There's a lot of people that don't like it. They would rather not see the fights. It makes them uncomfortable, to say the least. But I tell you, it makes a lot of people depressed because it takes away from their sense of security, where they feel like they had some friends finally, somebody that could understand what they went through. And then you come along and manufacture a fight for a simulated social experiment of yours that nobody knows about, or just a few people among your friends. And you really didn't ask them to do it outright. You kind of steer them and cajole them and then got them to think it was their idea. So I think this is heading into very dangerous territory, honestly. And I would say not just for the victims, not just your victims, but I would say for you legally, depending on the state that you live in, and also the states that the people live in. Let's say you did that social experiment with the XJW community, and someone from there committed suicide, and they left a suicide letter. No one knew them all that well, but in that letter, they wrote down to the effect that the last straw was when they were in a YouTube channel where you did your social experiment, and that was the last straw, and it got to them. They no longer felt worth living. They were already on the edge, but they felt like they had some hope with the XJW community, and because of that, they no longer felt safe, and they just pulled the trigger and they killed themselves. All right. So let's say their family member, Jehovah's Witness or not, they might have had some money and some intelligence and some means, and they went and got that letter and went on the computer, went to find you, traced you down, and sued you. Not only that, but in that state, not only are you being sued, but the prosecutor is after you to extradite you to that state on criminal charges for online, whatever legal terms. Hey, look this up in your legal LexisNexis, because there's tons of this stuff, and with varying outcomes. Some of these cases go through and these people go to jail, Yeah, and some of these cases don't. All depends on the state where the victims and where the perpetrators are. But I would say you might want to do more research if you're going to do these unconsenting social experiments with people and on people, especially with the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, because while a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses don't have a lot of means and a lot of education, there are some that do in one way or another. They might not have a lot of monetary means, but they have a lot of intelligent academic mental means, have both money and that. So, you just, I think it's a very risky business, really. I think, the social experiment might need to be evaluated because you're doing the same thing as the Jehovah's Witnesses. So why would you be any different? They don't ask people's consent when they're out to recruit people. I remember telling them I didn't want to go out in field service when I was a kid when they came to my door. I don't want to become like you and have to go out here. No, you don't have to do that. We don't force anyone. You can still study with us. These little old ladies, little grandmas, they were so sweet, sweet looking. Yeah, they told me I didn't have to go in field service. They lied to me. Yep. So, experiments done by psychologists have shown repeatedly that an individual human being will all too easily yield to the will of the majority at least one third of the time. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that we're all susceptible to being coerced to do things that are not, that we know that other people would not like. Okay. So stay sharp. Stay sharp, everybody. Stay sharp with yourself, first of all, because these types like to study you and me, and they like to study the weaknesses because they want to use them in social experiments. So, you might be thinking you're going through some kind of online fight with somebody that is actually staged or set up in some kind of way for someone else's social experiment. So just be careful on that, okay? All right. So, once again, this is Mind Control, the Ancient Art of Psychological Warfare by Dr. Ha Ha Lung, page, uh, where was that? Page 47, right? 46 and 47. All right, cool. All right. So let's check in with the live chat. Let's see who's all in there. We've got 7 people watching. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening here and in the future. All right. So Sour Blaze Hayes says cheers. Wait a minute. And then Sour Blaze Hayes says, I wonder if there were any creepers in my hall because they don't care. Yeah, I think there's probably at least one pedophile in every Kingdom Hall. Now, I read something somewhere online, and don't ask me where it was because I can't remember. I should have bookmarked it. Would have been nice if I bookmarked it. But nonetheless, I read something to the effect where, on average, the Jehovah's Witness child molester incidence is 4 times as high than the Catholic Church. And it said that there would be at least, in a 100-person congregation, there would be at least 4 child molesters to every Kingdom Hall. And I don't know exactly how they got their numbers because, a lot of that is guesswork. When you see those kinds of numbers, don't think that is concrete. It is just an attempt to make an intelligent guess with numbers because, the pedophiles obviously aren't in a hurry to tell people what they're doing. So we can't count every one of them, and the Jehovah's Witnesses have stopped publishing their baptism records. So their annual, what do you call it, yearbook, baptism thingy, whatever. So you know what that means. They're shrinking. So they're not trying to tell you the real numbers. So we really don't have a clue. It could be a lot higher, given with the fact that people who report child sexual abuse, that is very underreported. And there's probably, for every one person that you see coming out, there's probably 100 or 1,000 more that have kept silent and taken it and suffered in silence all the way to their grave. And some people say, yeah, well, there's people that lie too. Yeah, there is, but the percentage of those is very low. It's like 2%. There are people that will lie about such things, and those people really need to be put to jail and hurt. They need to really not. They need to be to learn not to do that, because they make it hard for the real victims and the real survivors. They make it extra hard on all of us who are coming out and talking about this. But there's another group dynamic. In every community, in every dynamic, you have that. You even have it between your ears. Okay, and I want to check out the book called Boundaries in Relationships: Knowing, Protecting, and Enjoying the Self by Charles L. Whitfield. I'm not going to be able to go through every single book here, but on this page here, I wanted to let you know about something having to deal with boundaries. As soon as I find it, let's see where I have it. Oh, here it is. All right. So these patterns are not just in groups or in families, but they're also between your ear. So check this out. On page 72 in Boundaries and Relationships, it says examples of projective identification. However, if I ignore my true self and identity with and exist from my false codependent self, then I may stagnate or regress and remain feeling like a martyr or a victim with a contracted sense of myself. I unconsciously project onto you a part of my inner life that I want you to take on for me. This happens a lot, people. It happens between coworkers. It happens between a boss and an employee. It happens between clients and business providers. It happens between husband and wife, daughter, mother, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents. We all tend to do this all the time. You have to stay sharp on yourself all the time, because this projective identification is an unconscious. You're not all that conscious about it, you see, and it's a part of your inner life that you might project onto someone else, or vice versa. They might be trying to project onto you, and when you see that happening, you can quickly detach, because you can see it for what it is. This person isn't necessarily a bad person. It's not your place to judge whether they're good or bad, okay? But you act accordingly and you set your boundaries. And by setting your boundaries, also emotionally, not just physically getting away from them or stopping communication with them or blocking them on your Facebook, but also mentally and psychologically. You take away the emotional charge when you realize, when you can free yourself from the black or white thinking of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, when you can rise up above the two, between good or bad or whatever, and you say, okay, this person is obviously projecting something onto me that is not my business. It has nothing to do with me. That's their inner conflict. We all have inner conflicts all the time, more than one, So if you have a conflict, it's useless. It's like weed and grass. You're going to have to pull the weeds all the time. You're going to have to wash your clothes all the time. You're going to have to shower every day. Hopefully you shower every day, these kinds of things. We all have to keep working on this, okay? And then sometimes you can realize, oh, wait a minute now, before this conflict even starts, you realize, if you're self-aware, that you might be projecting some of your unfinished conflicts onto that other person. Yeah. And then sometimes you see a combination of it. It's not just all or nothing. It's not black or white. A lot of times you see your part in it and you can see the other person's part in it, right? All right. So This projective identification may also allow me to continue to deny or disown that part of my inner life that I may have tried to project onto you. Okay? For example, if I'm angry or resentful about something, and how many XJWs are angry and resentful about something? At some point. I mean, you can't always be happy, right? There's a few moments where I get angry as heck, I'm telling you. And then there's times where I'm at peace and, I'm all right. I'm not, all over the place, but some of these news articles are just terrible. And how can you always stay on high key when you're reading about another person that has been abused in a horrific way with the Jehovah's Witnesses? You can't run away from it. We can't turn our heads, but at the same time, it's going to affect you for some time, right? Anyway, if I'm angry or resentful about something and I don't want to feel and handle that feeling, then I can unconsciously dump or project it onto you. If you buy it, also unconsciously and act it out by expressing it for me to others and also back to me, then I won't have to own and deal with my own feelings of anger and resentment. What is more, if you express your now taken on anger too much to others and to me, I will criticize and berate you or hold it against you in some other way for being so angry so often. Now, isn't that some crazy stuff? I've been guilty of it. I probably will be guilty of it a lot and won't even know it. I mean, and we all tend to do this. But it's pretty enlightening, because Jehovah's Witnesses are not going to they're not going to accept this, An elder is not going to look at himself that way. He's an elder. And if he's anointed, heck no. I think there's a lot of that projection with the Jehovah's Witness community and the ex-Jehovah's Witness community. Here's another one. Or if I feel ashamed and inadequate and I don't want to feel and handle that feeling of shame, then I can likewise unconsciously attempt to transfer my feeling onto you. And if you unconsciously buy it, then you can act it out and perhaps even express it for me. Then I can shame you even more for being so inadequate. God dang, you know what? That describes most of my childhood. Read that again. If I feel ashamed and inadequate, and I don't want to feel and handle that feeling of shame, then I can likewise unconsciously attempt to transfer my feeling to you. And if you unconsciously buy it, then you can act it out and perhaps even express it for me. So this is a lot like a business transaction, like a currency exchange between people unconsciously. Why don't we bring that to the surface? Why don't we bring it to the surface now? And really think about that. I might project something onto you, a feeling of shame, all right? You know what? I'll tell you, I had a feeling of shame one time. And let's say for whatever reason, I'm stressed and, that is just in the back of my mind. Maybe it's where I was shamed by a teacher for not having homework, and it, for whatever reason, it's stuck in my mind for all these years. It was a very shameful thing. She just shamed me in front of the class, and I felt so embarrassed. And she shamed me for sleeping in class. Okay, and she made me stand in the corner and made fun of my hair, and kids laughed, and it's always stuck with me. All right, so I'm going to project that onto you, okay? So let's say I project that unconsciously onto you. I'm not even sitting here thinking I will project this onto you now. But you and I, let's say we're co-workers, I'm kind of irritable already. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep. This shame thing about the teacher's in the back of my head for whatever, and it's not letting me go. And so it's overwhelming for me, and I just need to just project it onto you. You're my coworker. You're next to me. You happen to be there. Bam, it happens, right? Okay, and then you toss it back to me. See, I unconsciously attempt to transfer my feeling to you, and if you unconsciously buy it, so you unconsciously, for whatever reason, maybe you've got your own thing going, your own personal issues, and all of you buy it unconsciously. You take it on, and you're like, well, who is he to try to shame me about how I'm working? Maybe it's a remark I said, and you take it on, and you're like, hell no. Who is he to try and shame me, right? And then you express it in a certain way where I can shame you even more and say, oh, you don't need to yell at me. Why did you yell at me? I'll get you written up. I'll tell the boss. Or maybe you curse me. Maybe you say, how dare you shame me, motherfucker, and throw coffee in my face. You just spaz out. So now your job's on the line. I don't know. It usually, hopefully, it doesn't have to be that extreme, but these things happen all the time, all day. Notice that in these examples, nearly every message and movement is delivered and proceeds unconsciously, just as do nearly all of the same dynamics in unrecovered codependence. This is the key here, codependence. Codependence. A lot of us become codependent on each other in the Ex-Jehovah's Witness community simply because we don't have anyone else. We're fresh out of the Kingdom Hall. All our friends are at the Kingdom Hall. They're all shunning us. All families shunning you. You might not even have a place to stay, a steady place to stay. You might be sleeping on someone's couch or living, hand to mouth, check to check, or, credit card, whatever the case is. And you've got these people here, and you want to have friendships so bad, you become codependent on them, and you might tend to tolerate things from people that aren't quite nice or right. But because these are the only people that are willing to talk to you and spend time with you, it can be hard. It can be hard, but you want to check out this book here. It is called Boundaries and Relationships by Charles L. Whitfield. And here we're talking about unconscious transactions between people. Nearly every message and movement is delivered and proceeds unconsciously, just as do nearly all of the same dynamics in unrecovered codependence. In fact, this dynamic is an example of codependence in action, as to healthy interaction, where giving and receiving tend to occur on a more conscious level of awareness on the parts of both people. To use projective identification requires the unhealthy cooperation, also unconscious, of two or more people. Both partners are here actively codependent because each has a lost self. Each is focusing, that is, projecting, using, and blaming on the other, their partner, to their own detriment. They are also each operating with unhealthy boundaries, which allow this destructive dynamic to complete its vicious cycle. We learned this detrimental defense the same place that we learned most of our other defenses against emotional pain. This is the key. People not being able to handle emotional pain. It's just like body pain. It is very real. That's why quite a few ex-Jehovah's Witnesses will have drug addictions of varying degrees or chemical dependencies, along with other codependencies. Whether it's food, that's a drug addiction. In my book, if you're addicted to food, especially salt, sugar, and fat, then you have a drug addiction. The FDA is on the back of those labels. Federal Drug Administration. Those labels on that, a pack of sugar, you have FDA, Food and Drug Administration, right? So how many people can go without sugar? I know I can't. I've tried. By the third day, I'm losing it. I'm hallucinating. I'm pissed at the world. Try to go without sugar for 3 days. Try to go without anything with sugar. That means don't go eat out. Don't eat anything in a package because it will have sugar in it. Anything that comes in a package. So you're going to only need to go to the fresh, raw fruit and veggie part because everything else in the grocery store is in a package. You don't need to go into any aisles. All that's packaged food. And don't eat any sugar for 3 days. No sugar. Just straight up raw veggies. I don't think most people will be able to do it. I know I've tried it, and by 3 days I was just a wreck. I needed some white sugar, refined sugar, and I was going to get some sugar. I was drug addicted. Okay, it's true. All right, and if you eat any kind of fast food, if you eat out a lot, you're an addict because there is nothing but salt, sugar, and fat. Okay, so if you can't do without salt, sugar, and fat completely, then you are addicted to drugs, which is most of America. Yes. Okay. So, hey, let's be honest. Let's bring it from the unconscious, right? A lot of people, when you think drug addict, they think people that, smoke crack or, you know, crystal meth people or needles with heroin and all that. Yeah, that's there. Yeah. But if you're going to McDonald's every freaking morning, you're addicted. I mean, I don't go to McDonald's, and I know I'm addicted to salt, sugar, and fat. I hate McDonald's. I think it's the devil anyway. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so once again, hey Evie, Evie Brooklyn is in the house. Sour Blaze Hayes says it's important to do this work now. We never learned how to be personally aware or emotionally intelligent. We learned what we needed to do to stay in good standing. Bullshit. That's the key. You never learn this emotional and mental and psychological boundaries. And it has to do with self-identity. A lot of people coming out of the EXJW community don't know who they really are. They don't know their potential. They've been beat down. Their soul has been killed off. Their life energy has been drained. And they're looking at everybody else around them that's had a life outside of the Jehovah's Witnesses that's never had that happen to them, and they're expecting themselves to be like that all of a sudden. And in some ways, it's good to want to progress and to expect high standards for yourself, but if you're shaming yourself, if you're browbeating yourself because of where you are right now, it can get pretty overwhelming, and a lot of folks have that problem, and they're not conscious of it. Oh, I'm okay. Okay, I'm good. I'm good. You need to get over it. Just get over the XJW thing. I'm good. I got over it. You can just get over it. So they're playing the role, right? They're playing the game. They're the strong one, the powerful one, and they're expecting you to do what they need you to do, right? And it gets overwhelming for them on an unconscious level, and then they project it onto you. And if you buy into it unconsciously, then you can project it back to them, and it can turn into a vicious cycle. So you got a lot of dramas in the XJW community right here. This is the blueprint to them. This is the exact pattern, right? Am I telling you something that's a lie? Tell me I'm wrong, live chat. We got 4 people watching. We're going to have 4 people's opinions on this. Sour Blaze Hayes, Evie Brooklyn, Gary, what's up? I'm back, Bob. I was raised by a nutritionist and grew up to work for Burger Chef. My first real job. This food is innocent. And then Evie Brooklyn says, preach. You don't get over it. You learn to deal with it. Yeah, that is so true. Evie Brooklyn says, I drink lemon juice with ice cold water throughout the day. Curbs my sugar craving. That's good, and it's very delicious too. And it's a good picker upper in the mornings. You put some lemon juice in your water, and then you head to the gym, right before work, and it can kind of jumpstart you, especially if you're not trying to drink too much coffee. Trying to monitor your caffeine addiction, because you can get addicted if you don't watch it. That Starbucks, they put caffeine. By the way, they put nicotine and caffeine in the coffee. Yeah, Google that. So yeah, we all can end up doing this. It's not like you're going to be exempt. You're a human being. You have done this many times, and you're going to continue to do it. But the problem is when you refuse to see it in yourself. It's easy to see it in other people, right? It's easy for me to look at other people and say, yeah, I can see where he needs some work, and I can see where she needs some work, right? It's easy to point that index finger at other people. But there's three of them pointing back to me, right? So there's three times when you see something that someone else is doing, also ask yourself, well, where can I make sure that I don't end up doing the same mistake? Am I really is my ship as tight as I really think it is? Are there vulnerabilities there that someone else could be quietly watching and studying that I refuse to see about myself? You know, so it's just something to look at. And as far as the XJW community is concerned, you're going to come across this a lot. The more aware you are, and part of being aware is, reading up on this. I know that some people don't really care for books, but this is the only way that, I can tell you, it's not going to fall out of the sky from you. You're going to have to do a little bit, and it doesn't have to be like, you know, hundreds of pages every day, but I open up this book. Sometimes I'll just ask myself, what do I need to know in this instance or in this specific problem? What do I need to know for today? And I just open up the page randomly somewhere and read both sides of those pages, and then I take that and try to get an answer from it. You'll be surprised at how accurate you will become the more you do this with yourself. But you got to be sincere with yourself, okay? I don't know how to tell you how to do it, okay? Because only you know if you're sincere towards yourself. But once that's there, literally, my hand will just go already without me thinking, oh, what do I need to know for today? It will already open the page. Sometimes the book will fall on the floor and open up to the exact page where I've already highlighted something that is a specific answer to a problem that I was stumped at for that day. And it could have been a personal problem or professional problem, whatever the case, or activism problem. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times that's happened. All right. On page 235 of the same book, Boundaries and Relationships, Knowing and Protecting and Enjoying the Self by Charles L. Whitfield, excuse me, you have the appendix, page 235. And I found this very interesting because I read on the reviews on Amazon under this book that some of the people there, they did not understand the book after they read it. They were like, well, what is boundaries? What does that really mean? And I also came away with that feeling the very first time I read this book back in 2012. I came away saying, what does this mean? I just don't get it. And I'm so glad that I kept working with this book for some years. It took me about 3 years to really get this book. And by then I had read that book over 100 times over again. I have this book is full of highlights from all kinds of colors, yellow, green. I've got side notes written. I've even had to tape the middle pages of some of them because the page is falling out, so I had to tape it. So this book has been well read and well worn many times over, but it took me a good 3 years to really start having an understanding of an implicit experiential understanding of what boundaries were really about. It's not just saying no to people, it's not just asserting yourself, but it's also spiritually. It's not just getting physically away from people. It's not just financial boundaries, but it's also mental, emotional, and psychological, and spiritual. And this is where so many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses are vulnerable, spiritually vulnerable, because they've just left a cult, or maybe they've left a cult for 20 years, but they haven't been able to work out the spiritual dilemma inside of themselves. And these types of people are everywhere. They can be staunch church people that will swear up and down and play the role of confidence right in front of your face and have you questioning reality, to the one who cowers down and cries and says, well, I don't know what to believe. I'm so confused. Help me, someone. You know, you they can be varying degrees of behavior and actors and actresses out there in the XJW community and in any community that have still not worked the spiritual thing out, you know, and it's probably a lifetime thing, you know. Nobody, I don't really trust anybody that sits there and says they've got it all figured out. There's just too much stuff in the universe and the cosmos beyond this earth, you know, that we can't even wrap our heads around. So for any one person or group to sit there and say we've got a monopoly on the truth and we've got it figured out better than the rest of you all, you know, I just don't trust that. And when an individual comes off like that, I don't trust that either. And you know, it's something that you want to question within yourself too. But check this out on page 235: boundaries, energy, and the body. This is by Barbara Harris. She is now the wife. At the time, I don't think she was his wife, but she became his wife afterwards. And she's a writer, and she says, from a physical, psychological, and spiritual perspective, boundaries can have components of energy. This energy may be derived from the individual boundary setter's inner and projected inner life. So it might be derived from the individual boundary setter's inner life and projected or extended outward throughout their day-to-day life. At times, this and other forms, excuse me, at times, this and other forms of energy may be recognized and experienced by others. For example, when one person can read another person's aura or energy field. This energy might be associated with what is called a higher sense perception of psychic energy, wherein a person may have or develop certain psychic abilities, such as somehow knowing what is about to happen. People who have been abused as children and many who have had spiritual awakenings may develop these kinds of higher sense perceptions or psychic abilities, quote unquote, more often and to a greater degree than the general population. So I found this interesting, this last part here, because she says something on page 237, which is very, very important. And if you don't come away with nothing else from this live stream today and into the future, I want you to marinate on this second and third point of why you should be selective of who you work with in the activism community. All right, it says, if you feel uncomfortable or even faintly afraid, then something is probably not right with whatever group you have chosen. Now, in this part, she's talking about psychic classes. If someone has an interest in pursuing that subject further, she has these tips on making sure that you don't get in trouble. And she says, quote unquote, psychic teachers can carry contagious emotional and psychological pathology. That might sound far out, but it is true. Any emotional or mental pathology that they are carrying, even unconscious material, so they might not even be aware of themselves, that can be projected onto you through your perhaps vulnerable boundaries with the psychic quote unquote gifts that you might develop. So she's once again talking about people who might explore psychic things, but don't we see this in the XJW community? And this isn't, you know, necessarily talking about psychics, but people wanting you to join into things that you might not be that comfortable with. Let's say you weren't fearful, but maybe you were like, I don't know if I should do this to yourself, but then you went ahead and did it anyway because maybe you liked the person, maybe you just maybe you trusted that person. No, you know, I'm sure it'll be okay, yeah. But in the back of your mind, you were like, still, you weren't comfortable. You see, that's where you want to draw the boundary. And I think that we've been taught to be vulnerable in that instance because you're supposed to trust the governing body and just follow what the governing body says. So that pattern tends to resurface a lot. And even though you could be out 20 or 30 years and you could have had a lot of therapy, I'm not saying that we're just all these weak people, okay? But sometimes when you're stressed, when life is stressed, when you're working a full-time job or two full-time jobs, raising kids, or you might be dealing with illness in the family, maybe you have an elderly parent that has dementia and you have to take care of that parent and figure things out, and you have to face the fact that your parent is aging and dying, which means you're getting older. These things can nip at you, and then you have people in the community that might take advantage of that for whatever reason. And I'm not really talking about big time Illuminati conspiracy stuff. I don't really know if those things are true or not. I think there's a grain of truth to a lot of it, but I'm still skeptical on a lot of it too, right? However, you want to be extra careful who you work with. You want to be extra careful because not everyone who's nice to you is necessarily your friend. Not everyone who you like might be necessarily healthy for you to have in your life. And it's very easy to latch on to each other, because we have this unique experience, these blood ties. But there's nothing wrong with people doing solo activism. I've been a member of all kinds of interest groups other than ex-Jehovah's Witnesses over the years. And, these groups are the same way. We all need to work together and, let's do this. We've got this great thing that we're going to change, the world with, and we all need to work together. And there's nothing wrong with being a solo artist, a solo, excuse me, oh goodness, this wine, excuse me, a solo artist, sole proprietor, business wise, or whatever you want to call it, a solo activist. It doesn't mean that you are necessarily less effective. Just because you have a group of people doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be that much more powerful. It could be, right, because there's strength in numbers. But if not everyone is on the same sheet of paper, that whole group could actually take away from you, and you could actually get more effective if you were doing your own solo activism as opposed to handling people's drama around you, because some people are just dang messy.
What, honey? Messy?
Yeah, Sister Billy Bertha May Smith, just messy.
Ain't nobody as messy as the Jehovah Witness, boo. Let me tell you, honey. Oh, honey, let me tell you about that gossip, boo. Let me tell you about some gossip, honey, boo. Okay, honey, did you know that one elder, honey? Okay, honey, so what had happened was, honey, see, honey, he was so strict and he was so, honey, honey, he was so strict. He wanted to get over there and disfellowship all kinds of people, all kinds of young people too, because they didn't want to go to the Kingdom Hall regular, boo. This one young brother, boo, he went to the prom, boo, and he wanted to disfellowship him for going to the prom, boo. Can you believe that, miss? And then, honey, we found him twerking to Madonna, boo, in his wife's panties and bra, boo, and her bra strap, they said the bra strap, he had to get he had to get some ropes for the bra strap because his big old shoulders wore that bra out. And honey, when his wife, she accidentally walked in on him, honey, because he was twerking to Madonna, boo, and, and her pink panties and bra, boo. And she had walked in on him, boo, and she had to call the elders on her cell phone, boo.
All right. So thank you for that, Sister Smith. I don't quite understand how that fits into boundaries, but anyway, that's pretty funny, right? Self-righteous elder sitting there judging people, wanting to disfellowship a kid from his whole family because he went to a prom, and then he's pop locking to Madonna in his wife's pink panties. Wow, and she walked in on him. Wow. No, twerking, right?
Honey, he was twerking, boo. Not pop locking, but I'm sure he wanted to do that too.
All right, so yeah, check out this book, Boundaries in Relationships: Knowing and Protecting and Enjoying Yourself. I really do think this book is a useful tool. You're going to need some courage. I'm not going to lie to you. It was also very scary for me because you're going to dig up unconscious conflicts here. You're going to look for the trouble so you can heal it, and which means you're going to develop your tolerance for emotional pain. See, this is where the power lies. This is where you can repel these types of people because they can't do anything with people who have emotional control over themselves. And this is like going to the gym. You're not going to be able to go to the gym and bench press 300 pounds if you haven't ever worked out, or if you haven't really worked out much. Okay? It's crazy to expect yourself to have that kind of emotional control in these terms here. However, when you get books like this and you read a few pages a day, you marinate and chew on it, and you really work with it, long term. This isn't just something you want to read right quick and boom, you're going to be fixed. No, this is not Burger King. This is long term stuff. I've been working with this book since 2012, and I'm still a long way from where I think I should be, actually. I fall short more often than anything. So I still have a lot of work to do, and it's been some years, So, but like I said, I've saved myself a lot of trouble, a lot of drama, because it freed me up from having to judge myself or others, whether this was a bad person, whether I was a bad person, whether this was good or bad, and just objectively look at what's going on, look at my responsibility in the transaction, and remember everything is an energetic transaction. You listening and me talking is an energetic transaction. Okay? If there's some type of energy that you don't like, you're not going to listen in. You're going to log off and you're going to do other things. And that's going to result in a certain number of viewers that are not there, a certain number of listeners, right? And if it's an energy transaction that you appreciate, then you're going to be there. You're going to feed off of it. You're going to exchange and feedback. And all of this is unconscious. And this happens when you're at work, when you're dealing with your coworkers, when you're dealing with customers, when you're dealing with clients, when you're dealing with other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. So be expecting these problems to creep up all the freaking time. But it can liberate you from having to be angry or sad or upset as much. I'm not going to say you're not going to be upset anymore ever, okay? That's not healthy. But it sure as heck can help you weed out a lot of conflicts and heal them once and for all and move on and free you up energetically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever path you're on. It can give you that much more freedom and peace. Okay, so that's a cool book. All right, so let's see what the live chat has. We've got 8 viewers watching. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, honey boo.
All right, we've got JW Crisis. What's up, Ken? Did you vote for me? Hey, JW Crisis, Clint Eastwood. JW Crisis, is that Gilbert Gonzalez? Because if that's you, I want to thank you for tuning in. Gilbert Gonzalez is one of the most hardworking activists I know. Now, Hmm. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know everything um, that he does, but he's got these postcards that he sends out to Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and anyone that you need him to send them out. So check out his website. If you want to order some postcards to be sent out to people, he's got these great postcards that talk about the Australian Royal Commission and other things that you can help make people aware that he'll send out for you. All right, Gigi, the JW elder you wish you had. There you go. That's him. And he says, I've been blessed with 12-hour work days. Thank Jehovah I don't go to the meetings. Now I can make money. All right. Wow. Evie Brooklyn says, good vibes. I tune into vibes. That's right. Rome was not built in a day, Bob. That is true. And Ken Oath, thank you for tuning in. Ken Oath says, absolutely, you should be receiving your official appointment letter and day now. JW Crisis is right on. I need to update the aggressive postcards, and while I do it. Yes, JW Crisis says he will send them out to the elders' workplace. Yes, he will send them out wherever you need to send those cards out. So check out JW Crisis channel. GG, the elder you wish you had. GG for president, GG for president. Okay. Now, I want to talk about. Did I already talk to you about becoming the narcissist nightmare? How to devalue and discard the narcissist while supporting yourself? Okay. You know, the cool thing about combating cult mind control with Stephen Hassan, in a nutshell, he tells you that the most vulnerable part for cults that they like to take advantage of through mind control is hijacking your imagination. And the truth of that is, whether the CIA is doing MK Ultra experiments, or if it's a religious cult, or an MLM cult, or XJW community that is cult-like, and yes, cult-like XJW communities do exist. And even cult-like mentalities between your very ears. You know, you could be cult-like for a certain period of time. You don't have to be some big cult leader that gets people killed, but in the way that you deal with problems and conflict in your own life could be cultish. One way is refusal to be self-aware, refusal to take the time to really look at these types of things. If you don't look at these specific books, why not look at other kinds of books on this particular topic? How much time are you spending doing this as opposed to watching TV mindlessly, or passing time in some other way that you're playing online games or whatever the case is, you know? And I know that a lot of people don't have any time. You know, you've got kids to raise, you've got full-time job. Holy moly, you have time to hardly sleep. You know, so it's hard, you know, it's hard to even juggle having the necessities of life, let alone this. But, you know, I don't really have all the answers for it, you know. But I say, you know, try to slip it in any kind of way you can. If not, you can always tune into this and I can give it to you piece by piece like, you know, we're doing now, you know. So there you go. But this part here, if you do have some time to really check it out, on this page here, page 98 in Stephen Hassan's book, he says the unconscious mind, the key to creativity and vulnerability. What makes us also vulnerable to these influences and processes? The answer lies in the nature of the mind itself. So having a deep understanding of the mind itself is the key here. The human mind has been described as an extraordinary, fix that word for me, all right? Extraordinary. I don't know why I can't pronounce this word right now. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. Sophisticated biocomputer. Sophisticated biocomputer that is oriented for learning patterns for survival and much more. All right, so it is remarkable in its ability to creatively respond to a person's needs as well as to their environment. Our mind filters out floods of info every second so that we can cope with those things that we consider important. Always realize you're filtering out information for whatever reason, if not for simply to be able to survive and not be insane. Our minds are huge reservoirs of information stored as images, sounds, feelings, tastes, smells. All this information is systematically connected in meaningful ways. Our sense of self develops over years of life experience. As we grow and change, our beliefs about ourselves and the world change too. And our belief serves as the major means of processing information and of determining our behavior. So it is our creative unconscious that allows us to make mental pictures and to experience them as real, quote unquote. Our imagination can be channeled in other ways too. So, for example, when professional basketball players visualize the ball leaving their fingers and going through the net before they shoot, these capacities to fantasize and visualize exist within everyone and are essential components of being human. We all have dreamed about happier times in our lives, perhaps meeting the perfect person, perhaps winning the lottery. But hypnosis can also be used to create in our unconscious minds a fantasy world that can be used to enslave us. All right, so this is the crucial thing. You got to watch out for it, not just in other people, but in yourself. Yeah. So, yeah, those are the keys to why you should be selective with who you work with. It is that not all XJWs are on the same sheet of paper, and there's nothing wrong with being a solo activist if you need to be solo, because you can be more effective solo than if you had maybe 100 people or 1,000 people in your group and you had nothing but drama and chaos, you know. And this imagination thing can be sabotaged by people for maybe a day or two or a month or a couple of years for no other reason but to get attention from you. Remember, there are narcissistic tendencies within the Jehovah's Witnesses. The whole organization is narcissistic. It has the only truth. The whole rest of the world is wrong. That is the hallmark of narcissism. If you check out Robert O'Hare's checklist of psychopathy and narcissism, you're going to see that is the #1 hallmark, right? Evie Brooklyn's trying to still help me spell this. Okay, extraordinarily. Oh yeah, you helped me do it. How how cool is that? Narily. Don't mess me up, Evie. That is why Evie Brooklyn says that is why fear works so well. Remember those you didn't like at the Kingdom Hall? They are among us now. LOL. JW Crisis says so many great new YouTubers subscribe. Please tell to all the new apostates. And then Sour Blaze Hayes says, love this book. And JW Crisis says, healthy fear is great, but seldom taught. Good topic. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, I think fear, you can't get rid of fear in life, you know, but a lot of the fear is not death or life threatening, even though we're perceiving it to be life threatening. And this can happen to the best of us, to the most balanced, most recovered person, okay? Don't think that you're going to be invulnerable if you've had 20 years of awesome therapy and you've been great. You know, you can slip up anytime. You can slip up anytime. And if it happens, it shouldn't be something that you beat yourself up over. You know, you pick yourself up and you try again. You know, that's where we're all at. Because there are people within the various communities, and like I said, I've been in all kinds of communities, not just XJW communities, and I've seen this happen. There are people that just need narcissistic supply. They bring drama and they bring chaos, and they don't really have, it's like they know, but they don't want to know. You know what I mean? So they work hard to not know. And they work so hard to not know that they try to get you to question your own, to doubt your own sense of self. And it's a very subtle, it happens usually on a very subtle level. With the smooth ones, it's a very subtle way that they do things. Some of them are not as smooth. You know, some of them are pretty crude and you can see the red flags right away. But in all of these games that people play within the XJW community, uh, the key is the imagination. And that imagination skies up when people get angry. When people get angry at each other, you know, for whatever reason, when people fight with each other, there's an emotional charge. And then what happens is that it rises up and it builds up and it forms a split. And you have sides taken. And you have people that are for this one, and then you have one that's against that one. And they bond, reconfigure within that community. And you see that in corporations, you see that in families, definitely at Christmas time. Look around it right now. We are in the perfect time of the year to see these things happening. You're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see it in traffic, even. You're going to see it in the stores if you're shopping. You might even see it in your family. And the imagination is key. And you have, I think this is very rampant in Jehovah's Witness families, where you have people manipulating each other's emotions and using fear, obligation, and guilt, and using that imagination. You know, the go-to one is Armageddon. You know, if you feel threatened, your life is threatened because you're going to die at Armageddon if you don't comply or do this, whatever it is that you to do, or this congregation body of elders, or your parent maybe. You know, maybe you're 40 years old and you've had your own job, your own home, but somewhere down the line, your mother and father still have the ability to get you in that vulnerable position in some kind of way, right? Maybe you've been gone out of the religion for 20, 30 years, you know, and you're over it. You're good. You know, it doesn't affect you anymore. You're beyond all that. You know, all these other people, they need to just get together and just move on because, you know, you did it, so they can too, right? Right. So you get pissed at these people, right? But maybe there's some kind of conflict you're still dealing with, and that's why you're charged up, and now you're projecting because you're not over it after all. I don't know. I'm just saying. You know, anybody that's over it, they wouldn't really, you know, they would understand that that took such a huge amount of time, and that everyone has to have their own time in healing. Everyone has to have their own, excuse me, own amount of time in healing, and you know, some people might not heal in this lifetime, so you have to let them go. You have to say, I love you enough to let you go, because if you are going to have me in your circle, you're going to experience pain, because you and I, we don't match. So we must part ways. And it doesn't necessarily mean anyone is a bad person or a good person or anything like that. It just means let that person go. But then you have certain XJWs that will refuse to let that person go. They will send others to you. It's like the elders, you know, when you stop the people that fade. I think I was a fader. I faded like starting at 19. I started going less and less. I didn't know at the time that that was called fading, but I think I'm a fader. I don't even know if I'm this fellowshipped or not. I assume I am. I mean, after what I've done.
Oh, Jehovah, honey, don't get him started, boo.
All right. Anyway, so you have people that like the elders. They'll send people to your home and they'll knock. Oh, we missed you at the meeting. Oh, we missed you. And people that don't normally talk to you at the Kingdom Hall, like they never even look at you, right? Like you'll be coming in the Kingdom Hall, and there's always the certain ones that always say hi to you. Hey, brother, so and so. Hey, brother, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. Small time shooting shit type of shit talk, right? And then you have this sister. Oh, hey, honey, how you doing? You looking so young and tender, honey. Give Sister Billy Bertha a big old kiss. What? No, I'm just kidding. But you have those that they will walk right past you, right, with their nose up in the air. And you better not say a damn thing to that JW. They just happen to be in your Kingdom Hall, but you don't have a right to talk to them. You know those kind, right? And then there's everyone in between. You have some that just have always been funky to you for whatever reason. You don't know why. Maybe you trigger them some kind of way, some kind of weird way. There's a lot of weird people at the Kingdom Hall, I'm telling you. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, Evie Brooklyn. Evie Brooklyn says nosy ass people. Yes, elderettes were like that to me. You know what? Some of these elder bodies have women on them. I'm just gonna put it out there. Hey, Waking Possum. Hey, honey boo. Jehovah can see you, Bob. You know what? Some of those elder bodies. Yes, it is a power pyramid, Waking Possum. Some of those elder bodies, they do have women on them. They're not directly on the elder body, but they're the driving force between the man sitting on the elder body, right? You know this is true. Because some of these guys on the elder body are complete idiots and have no spine whatsoever. They're just yes men. And they're just a mediator between the wife that wants to have a husband that's an elder and the elders directly. And you know this is true. This is true. So you'd be a fool to think that these power plays are not going to be part of our XJW community, folks. It's time for a unpleasant talk. We like to confront Jehovah's Witnesses on the child abuse, but what are we looking away on? What are we as a group refusing to look at? Number one, the fact that we're going to have to deal with a lot of this stuff still in the XJW community. And it can be an individual doing this, all the way to a small group of 2 or 3 people, all the way to, a larger group, a church. Churches are rampantly for doing that. Any kind of religious, faith-based institution. I don't care if it's Buddhist, Jewish, even atheist. You have atheist communities. It just happens with people in general. So your imagination is the key. There are people that refuse to take no for an answer. And just like in the Jehovah's Witness congregation, they'll send other XJWs to try to get you back involved in. You might have put that person on block. And for some people, I guess block doesn't mean the same thing as it does to me. Now, when I block someone, I'm fully aware that that person can go make another profile and see my posts, right? And they can request to friends add me and pretend to be another person to be able to get in to see my Facebook. I'm fully aware of that. But the block feature has been invoked on my end as a message to that person that I do not want to have you on my Facebook and I want to keep a distance from you. Right? I think any 6-year-old or 7-year-old would have enough of, would understand that, like if their friend blocked them on Facebook, they would understand that their friend probably doesn't want to hang out anymore. and wants to keep some distance. Okay. Um, Evie Brooklyn talks about tribalism. You hate Facebook because of that? Yeah. Okay, JW Crisis says, I gotta go. Thanks, Bob. Gotta make some money. Apostasy is expensive. All right, JW Crisis, thank you for everything that you do. Go out there and make that dough and live your life. Take a break from the XJW world as you need. We all need a break sometime. Go live life. And we love you and look forward to you coming back soon. Yep. So back to these people. They refuse to take no for an answer, and they send other people to try to just to try to convince you to get back involved with them, and they don't want to really take no for an answer, you know. And sometimes it can hurt. It can hurt when people put you on block. It hurts me when someone puts me on block. Even if I don't like that person, even if I've been thinking on blocking them already, they just beat me to it. It's like, damn it, I wanted to block you first. That doesn't feel comfortable, right? You're not doing backflips over that, right? Like you didn't even want to really, you didn't even know this person. Like sometimes I'll add a person just to give them the benefit of the doubt, but maybe I'm lazy and I haven't really read through their profile all the way, and I realize this person might be a little bit outside of my perimeters. All right. All right. So I'm ready to defriend them, and they they might have done it before me for whatever reason. All right. And then sometimes there is a reason. Sometimes I've confronted people on posts or whatever that had posts that I did not agree with, and they attempted to use covert aggression and emotional manipulation when I was stating facts. Uh, Happens a lot with the Jehovah Witness forums, where there's a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses on there, and you're posting news sites and things like that. They try to use emotional manipulation on you, and I just don't have tolerance for that. I put somebody on ignore right quick on that, because I'm looking for information and objectivity in certain instances. So, if you're trying to threaten me with Armageddon or something silly like that, I'm just gonna have to move on. But nonetheless, you have people that might want to still grab at you in some kind of way. And again, it just shows a lack of consent. This person is obviously not really interested in you as a person, because if they were, number one, they would have respected your boundary. When someone puts you on block, they're going beyond unfriending you. They've just blocked you, and that should give you the clue that if you really cared about that person, that you would respect that and move on. It hurts. I've had people block me. There's lots of people that blocked me. Many people have blocked me. I'm not the easiest person to get along with sometimes. I'm fully self-aware on that. I'm working on it. I probably fall short more so than I'd like to face, but uh, it's okay if someone blocks you. It doesn't have to take away from you as a person if you know who you are. But if you keep trying to coerce and cajole this person to come back in some kind of way, if the person doesn't want to sit down and have a peace summit with you, if that person doesn't want to meet with you anymore to talk it out and to explain, then just let them go. Don't you think of yourself as enough? You know, uh, some people equate rejection with a personal affront to them. They equate a rejection like that as a matter of survival, like their identity is shattered, and they can't understand why this person would block them, why this person doesn't want to hang out, why this person doesn't want to be in that group with them. There are people that just take it, they aren't able to take that, and It's a matter of self identity, and they might even feel like their life is to pieces. And because of that, now they have to figure and manufacture some kind of drama with you involved and try to get under your skin so they can feed, because they don't have any more of that from you. Narcissist. This one here, this book, "Becoming the Narcissist Nightmare" by Shahida Arabi. She talks about how it's a codependency, it's an addiction, and they no longer have the narcissistic fix, the narcissistic supply. Remember, it can be love or hate. It doesn't matter. As long as they have an emotional charge from you. The key is indifference and detachment. And that's a big, tall order, because if somebody's gotten under your skin and knows something personal about you, you've entrusted, maybe you've confided in them in some kind of way, what they will do is look to see at what is near and dear to you, or what they think is near and dear to you, and try to use that as leverage to get a transaction between you and them going. They need the energy. And this is where the boundary thing comes into play. This is why I read you that last part about energy and boundaries, you see. And this isn't all that easy to put your finger on. It's not a scientific thing you can study in a laboratory. Yes, physically you can set a boundary. You can say, don't come within 300 feet of me if you make a restraining order on them, right? You can set a physical boundary, which, yes, is concrete and scientific, but when you're dealing with emotions and mental boundaries and psychic and spiritual boundaries, uh, now you're getting into, maybe I'm running out of a good word. I don't have a better word than fuzzy right now that comes to me, of type of a fuzzy, a fluid area of reality beyond the physical world. Emotions you can't really study in a lab, but we all have them. No matter how scientific we are, we all have emotions and to contend with every single day, consciously and unconsciously. And there are mental components and spiritual components, right? So a lot of times, people in the XJW community will really do each other very nasty and hurtful things, simply because they don't know, they're overwhelmed with their own emotions and their own conflicts, and they don't consciously let themselves deal with those things. So those things don't just stay down because you try to press them down through food, drugs, alcohol, drama, getting at other people. Those things don't stay down. They just take over you, and you end up becoming enslaved to your own unawareness, your own unself awareness. And as life always has it, someone much more cunning and much more smarter and much more devious than you, when you do these things to other people, when you catch yourself doing them, and you don't fix yourself, you don't hold a tight rein on yourself, well, eventually someone a little more better than you comes along and gets your weaknesses and hones them in for him or herself. It's just the pattern, the cycle. So stepping out of that cycle once again is becoming detached, working on detachment, realizing that this is to be expected. You're going to have a high number of people that are emotionally distraught. They're being shunned. Almost everybody's being shunned. Some few lucky people had families that were outside of the JW, and they joined maybe when they were already older folks, and they only stayed 2 or 3 years. But a lot of people just don't have any other resource, so this is the only way that they know how to survive. And but nonetheless, I would ask, at least for people to just respect someone, let them go. But some people feel like they want to retaliate by taking down a whole channel. You know, um, And that's happened to somebody who started the channel, and I don't quite understand or know all of the details. From my I summarize what happened was that he he wasn't able to always do a weekly program or something like that on a regular basis. He wanted to have a consistent live stream program every week for the community to have support. And unfortunately, he had a full-time job and a family, right? So, he wasn't always able to do that every freaking week. It's like going to meetings. You have to do this every freaking week, no matter what. And, so he had some friends help him, and he gave them the password to the channel. And I guess things went okay for a while. I don't know. But at some point, those other folks decided that he was going to be outvoted off his own channel. And I guess, he was just felt discouraged on that, or just said, okay, you know, he didn't fight them on it, or he didn't, maybe he didn't want to, have an interruption for the community so they could still enjoy the channel without having to see that ugly side behind it. So I guess he just left it to them, and he tried to just chill, and it was, I guess I could imagine, hurtful to him. And let me see. After that, they did some shows, and they had I was on there a few times, and then after he had blocked a couple of people from that channel there that was running that channel, for various reasons, maybe just not a good match, they decided to take the whole bad channel down. So now the whole channel is deleted. And I think it's really unfair to the community, to the people, to the subscribers of the bad channel for them to have done that, because of personal issues between the original founder and the people that are running it, But this is the unfortunate thing, People, they just lash out at each other, and they don't want to, I think the cool thing would have been is to continue to do your shows. I mean, if you thought that your shows and your programs were such great things, that why would you interrupt them? Why would you let something like someone blocking you uh, have you do all of that to interrupt the shows or whatever? But more importantly, to the viewers, so that your viewers wouldn't, you know, be punished. It's like punishing your subscribers to the bad channel, because of the original owner blocking you. So you're not going to do any shows. You're just going to delete everything, or hide it from, put it private so people can't see it. And not every subscriber has seen every single video. Some people, like me, I subscribe to a lot of different YouTube channels, and I don't always have time to watch every single video on every single YouTube channel that I subscribe to. So I go back to those channels, and I will watch a video here and there, and work my way through their videos. And it might take me some time. There are some YouTube channels that have taken me 2 or 3 years to be able to watch every single channel, and that took quite a bit, because some of these YouTubers, they're pretty prolific. They produce new stuff all the time. And so to punish your subscribers like that, I think that's very unfair, because a lot of the subscribers to Bad Channel, they do have a lot of family shunning them. They don't have a lot of community or people skills, and for them to be punished like that and not be able to listen to any of the videos that were from the past, or even the present ones, I think that's pretty sad. I think it's really sad. But it's all about that person's ego, and that's clear. That's clear. It's like, okay, well, you blocked me. I'm going to just delete all your videos. I'm just going to delete all your channel, because I've got the leverage. I've got the power. I've got the password. So yeah, you take that. So, well, at least that's how I see it. You know, I could be wrong. I could be way off the mark, and I'm sure someone out there is probably saying that right now. So,
Oh, Jehovah, honey, you are so wrong, boo. There is no such thing as Australia, boo. And that Australian Royal Commission is lying, boo. That thing lying, honey.
yeah, Neil Tucker is gone. Neil Tucker says, I loved bad. Yeah, yep. Wake and Possum says the Greystone approach. Love it. Yeah, Evie Brooklyn, they have your attention either way. Evie Brooklyn, I shut down my channel because 7 years was enough. Didn't know that was the deal. Too bad. Yeah, anyone can start a live show. Yeah. Well, the lesson learned is this, folks. Don't give your password out to anyone but yourself. Don't give it up. Okay? All right? That's the number one. Set your boundary right there. Okay? Number two, you don't have to join a group to be effective and do some major activism that you can be proud of, or some major work to help some major people. You don't have to join a group, not in this day and age. With one Twitter tweet, you can reach over 11,000 people, and you don't have to have more than 20 or 30 followers. I know a lot of people like to look at these numbers, and the numbers are okay, folks. I'm not a number phobe. I love numbers. Trust me. I love numbers. They have a spiritual component to me. There's a sacredness to numbers that I have, explored in philosophy and all of this stuff. But you also need to understand the other dynamics of systems, um, of how groups work, and something called the 80-20 Pareto principle. 80% of your results, your desired results, will only come from 20% of your efforts. And then you also have something called the law of the few. It only takes a certain small amount, particular kinds of people, or a small amount of fundamentals for you to understand the big picture, for you to have a tipping point, a Lollapalooza effect, as Charlie Munger or Warren Buffett says. Okay? And I think a lot of us get lost in that. We want all these subscribers, and I'm very thankful for every subscriber. I'm very thankful for every person watching right now. We've got 10 viewers. I'm so thankful, but it's not about the numbers, people. It's not about getting as many people to help do this. And then a lot of this stuff, it sounds great. At one point, I was in a group, not an ex-Jehovah's Witness group. This was another group. And I wanted to open up a nonprofit. This was way back in 2004. Yes, way back. And it was a nonprofit to help people, to help homeless people, to help people that didn't have food, and to help people that didn't have certain medical, didn't have ability to have medical health benefits, certain health benefits. Okay, and even recovering. There was, I think, in that group there was one or two recovering alcoholics. But the whole point was to have a nonprofit to help people, right? And I learned that as noble and as great and as wonderful as that idea was to me, when I started actually trying to pull that thing through, to actually have a real nonprofit, and I had a large online group. I think I had 300 members in my group. So there were enough people in there that could have gotten behind this. But the point was, at the time, first of all, I needed some dough, about $1,500 right up front, to pay a lawyer to draft up the documents for a nonprofit, you see. And that was some years ago. It's probably a few pennies more now. Well, out of those 300 people, not one dang stinking person was willing to donate to pay up that 1,500. I was expected to pay that 1,500 out of pocket. Everyone wanted the benefits, and there were plenty of people that wanted to become board members. What? I get to be board member of a 501 nonprofit to help people and da 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 da. Yes, I definitely like that idea. Well, we need about $1,500, and if it's 4 board members or 5 of us, then that means maybe what, $200 or $300 a pop? What? Oh no, I can't do that. So I'm not saying that nonprofits can't be done, okay? But there sure as heck is a lot of legal stuff involved. You better know what you're doing. You better have a good lawyer. Because if you have a cheap one or one that doesn't really know what they're doing, you can get in a lot of trouble. Because once you do the grant writing, and your mission statement has to be worded in such a certain way so you can get the most grants possible. Because if your mission statement, your nonprofit mission statement, isn't worded a certain way, you can forget about grants. Yeah, that's one thing that I had to learn the hard way. I was like so freaking dumbfounded. We finally got a friend of a friend who had been a grant writer for the Boys and Girls Clubs for 12 or 13 years. And she explained all these things to me. Was a gold mine of information as far as trying to get a nonprofit going. Yeah, buddy. So, how do you write your mission statement? Yeah, that's going to take you some research because it's not a blanket type of thing, All depends. If you're trying to get a grant because you're running a homeless shelter, or if you're trying to get a grant to help someone with medical care, they're going to be all written differently, and they require someone who is a writer in that particular niche in grant writing. Like, you can't just sit down and think you're a writer now and you know how to write grants. You're not going to get a dime from these people. And then the other side of it is your tax exemption. Yeah, that sounds really, really great on the surface. Oh, we don't have to pay taxes. We will be tax exempt. Yeah, but you have to account for every single stinking penny. You had better, because that tax exemption, you're not going to get that for nothing. You're going to have so much legal risk on your ass for that tax exemption, and you had better know your math. And I don't know. I mean, I have faith and hope, but a lot of EXJWs coming out and that have come out, they still have the JW math. You know what I'm talking about? The JW math. Look, I'm just going to be honest. A lot of us don't really know how to count. I'm serious. The JW math. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like you went to McDonald's for 15 minutes and left the track, and then you counted an hour. When I found out people were doing that, I was already 16 or 17 years old, and I was so shocked that the other Jehovah's Witnesses in this congregation I was in had been doing this for years, because I had been forced to go rain or shine 2 hours nonstop, sometimes 2.5 nonstop. You didn't have a break. You did those 2 hours, whether it was 90-degree humid weather. This was in the South too, where it was very, very hot and humid. Or it was raining. One time I stepped in dog shit, excuse my French, in dog feces. I stepped in dog feces, and I was still expected to go from door to door with dog shit on my shoe, and it was all up in it. Like it needed to be like cleaned. It, you know what I'm saying? So, one time I almost fainted. They were sitting in the car like, "Are you okay? You ready to keep going?" I fainted. I need to go to the hospital or something. It was so hot. Everything started like blackening out. It was so freaking hot. And I was like this 10-year-old kid. I was forced to go on in field service on my summer vacation, and it was so hot. And I hadn't eaten breakfast because nobody was fixing breakfast for me. I was a latchkey kid. So these Jehovah's Witnesses, these old Jehovah's Witnesses, they were like old and they were weird. They would pick me up. He was the book study conductor. Back then, they had the book study conductor. And you come in the car and you could cut the tension between them with a knife. It was so excruciating, uncomfortable for me. I'm this little kid, right? And this is supposed to be the elder, the book study conductor, and his wife. They're supposed to be an example, a Jehovah example, and they can't stand each other, and you can just cut the tension with a knife. I dreaded that every damn field service. I dreaded them picking me up. It already started way right when you get into the car. All right, Evie Brooklyn. She says, be right back. Hey, Sarah Pettigrew. You're an inspiration. Yeah, field service, Sour Blaze Hayes. Yeah, so they didn't get along. He was always bad mouthing her in field service, and he would be telling me all these personal problems between them. I'm this kid, and here's this, I don't know, he was like 70 something year old elder, and he's telling me all these personal problems he and his wife are having, in between doors. It was just like, and sometimes he went into like the problems they had in the bedroom, and that was like the weirdest shit ever. I just like refused to work with him anymore, but I couldn't tell anybody why, because he was viewed as the epitome of faithfulness. They called him Old Faithful, and he was brother. I don't want to say his name, but he would make these remarks too about the incubator. He would say, "Oh, your mama has some really nice thick legs, and she has those wonderful German legs." He would say these things to me while we'd go from door to door. Yeah, but yeah, it was some weird times. I hated field service, and this one day, I everything started going black. I remember we were at this door, and the person seemed very friendly. They even invited us in, and I was standing in the doorway, walking towards the couch, and all of a sudden, it was like this black fog came over me, and my hearing like faded into the distance, and um, I fainted. The next thing I remember, I was on the floor, and they were like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I go, "Yeah," and I was kind of disoriented, and my vision came back, my hearing was back, it came back very quickly, and I went to the bathroom. I just kind of sat on the toilet um, lid for a minute, and then just washed my hands and face, and I wasn't feeling good. I was nauseous. I was feeling weak. It was hot, and I wanted to go home. I had fainted. I didn't have anybody to watch me and supervise me, make sure I eat breakfast and dress myself. And you really just don't leave a kid alone at home their whole childhood. But I basically had to do all that for myself. So a lot of times I didn't eat breakfast. I was a kid, so I didn't eat breakfast and just went on out the door. And I think the heat too, not eating breakfast, being a kid, and being in that heat, and just being tired or whatever, and even stressed from stuff at home. So it happened, and they were still expecting me to keep going, but I refused. But after he started talking weird about that personal stuff, I was a little older already, and I refused to work with him, and I couldn't tell anybody. But I got in trouble for it because I was very stubborn. I had become more and more stubborn as I got older, and I would I wouldn't work with him anymore. Or if I had to, I wouldn't say anything. I would just have one word answers like yes, no, and just not really engage. And he would always be on my case about it, like, why aren't you commenting at the book study? That hurt me when you didn't raise your hand. It was just little petty crap like that. They were on me. They would have. meetings about me not raising my hand because I just didn't want to be involved. Um, and so I always had to do the one obligatory hand raise, and I usually either did it right at the beginning of the book study or right at the end, right before the very last question, so nobody can fault me for not having raised my hand. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Sour Blaze Hayes says, "Ha ha ooh." Waking Possum says, "Sounds like field service." FEELED, field. Yeah, I think he was a pervert actually. Now that I'm older and we know what we know, I think he was a little bit perverted. Um, he had I'm gonna tell you something. He had this really embarrassing thing, and when I got to be a teenager, I really didn't want to be seen around him because his thing was constantly like poking out. He had some kind of medical condition where where the penis, the genital of the guy, is constantly hard. There's a medical term for it. Well, he had that. So like when you had to work with him in field service, imagine his thing is like super poking out, and he's on your front door talking about the Bible. Like he needed to get that fixed, and he never did. And yeah, yeah. I don't know if it was Viagra because he and his wife did not get along. They hated each other, and they didn't call each other by first name. They called each other by last. I'm just going to say his name, Jimmy Frazier. Jimmy Frazier. He was the book study conductor. He was in his 70s, tall, bald, black dude, and his wife. Her name was Pearl Frazier. And he knew what was going on, by the way, at home. He knew all the abuse and all that, but he was always telling me that it wasn't as bad as it was. He was trying to convince me it wasn't as bad. So I think about that now. He was a different kind of enabler. But nonetheless, they called each other Frazier by each other's last name. So he would never tell the women the directions to field service. He would tell the men, but the women would never be told. They would always just be like, he'd take his finger and point, and he'd go, just go down there, that way, this way. But the men, he would gather up in a group and then go over a territory card and explain where to go and what to do. And it was the weirdest thing. And so what always ended up happening was the women wouldn't know where to go. They'd get lost. And then he'd always find himself at midway between one street and another, where his wife and another, woman, JW, quote unquote, sister, or maybe a group of fours or whatever, would be at the end, and he'd be like, Frazier, Frazier, Frazier. That's how he would talk to his wife, like a dog, right? That's how you call a dog, right? Fido, Fido, Frazier. Right? Did he talk to her like a dog or not? You know the Fraziers? Wake and Possum? Are they from Alabama? Hi, Lalish Silva. Love your videos. Oh, hey, honey boo. Well, thank you, honey child. But yeah, Pearl and Jimmy Frazier. Jimmy and Pearl Frazier. So yeah, um, he was always mad that she didn't cook breakfast for him. He wanted her to cook breakfast for him and 3 meals a day, and that was very important to him. I remember him telling me he wasn't really discussing Bible stuff unless he was like playing the role as an elder, but most of the time, I'm this kid, I'm like 10, 11 years old, and he's talking about how his wife is refusing to cook breakfast, and how this morning, once again, she refused to cook breakfast, and how she's not doing her wifely duties. And This was a lot of strange, uncomfortable things I had to endure listening to, you know, uh, every field service. And his wife was different. Now, his wife, she was, I don't know what you would call what she had. She was unique and outstanding. And I laugh because every meeting, whether it was Thursday or book study or Sunday meeting, she would raise her hand and she would raise her index finger with her hand. She'd have her index, the only finger that was up was her index finger when she raised her hand, okay? And once she got the mic, she would say,
Well, yes, this is very unique and outstanding.
and then she'd go on to answer whatever she had to answer. And she did that for 11 years straight. Unique and outstanding. And that's how I'm going to describe her personality. Like, you knew there was something a little bit, I don't want to say off. I don't want to use that word. Uh, you knew there's, some people like, I don't know how to explain this. But okay, all right. So I'm going to explain this to you. I think I've talked about her before. Uh, when she wore a color, she wore that one color. So she'd wear red. So it was red skirt, red shirt, red blouse, red hat, red earrings, red fake pearls, red nail polish, red purse, red umbrella, red lipstick, and red candy. And then the next time you saw her, she had the same version, except it was green. So everything was green. Her toenails were green. Her fingernails were green. Her skirt was green. Her blouse was green. Her fake pearls were green. Her earrings were green. She didn't wear green lipstick. But she had a green umbrella and a green purse. And yellow and orange and blue and so forth. Okay. And she had these weird conversations too that she tried to have me. Like one day, out of the blue, she would say,
Honey, people eat sex.
and I was thinking, what? She was like, people eat sex, and stay away from people that eat sex. That's against Jehovah. And I kid you not, there was no remote galaxy around that topic. Like I don't even remember if we said anything to each other. Like a few moments had passed where there was just silence, and maybe she just felt obligated to say something, and this was the first thing that came to her mind. But I was just taken aback. I was, I didn't understand this. I was 10 or 11, and she's telling me about people that eat sex and not to eat sex, and I was just perplexed. I went home and asked the incubator, what does this mean that Sister Pearl Fraser, she sent this to me. She said, don't you eat sex? And there's people that eat sex, then that's against Jehovah. I said, people eat sex. And so I had to be explained about oral sex. And so she's telling me about oral sex. Why is this woman trying to have this talk with me? I don't know, but that was a weird thing, I'm telling you. Um, uh, and, I knew something was off with her, but this is the kind of weirdness. And she had this very animated way. She would be honey you. This is where I got the honey child from. She would say, honey child, people eat sex, and don't you do that. Don't you eat sex. She had some crazy stuff. Yeah, that's what she meant. Oral sex. So Evie Brooklyn says it sounds like Samuel Heard. Waking Possum says like she would burn his dinner on purpose and giggle privately. Yep, she was unique and outstandingly monochromatic. Yep. I think she was mean to him for a reason. I'll tell you about Jimmy Frazier. He had his devious ways. I didn't know this until long after leaving that religion and that group. But I was told that he had these Bible studies with very beautiful women um, that were, he would try to have Bible studies with them. And this one woman, she was very embarrassed because he had his, pants. He had that hardness going on in his pants there. His pecker was, what they call it, pecalomegaly, penile megaly, something megaly, something. You know what I'm talking about. Look it up in Stedman's dictionary. But it's a medical condition, and it's where the penis is 24/7 hard. It's to the point where it's very uncomfortable and painful for the person. But he kept trying to have a study with this woman. She was embarrassed to have him come to her door because the neighbors would see this guy, this old man with a hard up on coming in there, spending an hour or two in there, right? And the weird thing was that Pearl Frazier, his wife, somehow she sensed that he liked this woman, like there was a sexual attraction. And so she refused to go into the Bible study with him. So she would sit outside in the car the whole time he would go inside and have a study with this woman. And this went on for like a year or two. Can you believe that shit? So Jimmy Frazier wasn't the old faithful and the epitome of what you should follow and all of that, like he was made out to be to me as a kid. He was doing all that while and more while he was supposed to be old faithful. Yeah. I don't know how they use the bathroom. Neil Tucker says, "How the fuck do you piss?" I don't know, man. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's why. I don't know. He had problems urinating too. Sometimes he would have to rush to go to the bathroom, and he kept like a portable thing in the car. He had some problems later on as he got older, I heard. But he made his wife sit in the car, man. He made his wife sit in the car. Obviously, look, you're an asshole. I'm just going to say this. You know your wife is not okay with you going in there studying, okay? And whether he had some kind of thing for this lady or not, which we all tend to think because he was African American and he liked like mixture mulatto or very light light color African American women. He had this one other one that was called Phyllis Magoo, and she was very pretty. She married a Korean man who was half Korean, half white, and she was very pretty. She was very pleasant. Her personality was very sweet. I have very fond memories of her. Her name is no longer Phyllis Magoo now, but very, very beautiful. And this Jimmy Frazier, you could just see I mean, he couldn't hide it. His eyes would glow every time he saw her at the Kingdom Hall. And, he had a grin from ear to ear, and he would be shaking her hand and holding on to it just a little bit longer than usual. It was just obvious. So he had a thing for these kinds of women, and also women that were Caucasian and also Asian women, but he really liked the mixture looking ones or the light colored African American women, and they were beautiful. A lot of them, we had a lot of beautiful women around us there. And so this one here, he was studying with, trying to get her on in, her and her husband, um, you know, um, or maybe she was single at the time. I think she was single at the time. So his wife probably sensed there was something there, and she wasn't comfortable. And her sitting in the car would let him know she didn't want him doing this. Why did he not assign someone else to study with her? You know, and anyway, aren't the men only supposed to study with the men and the women only with the women? Why was he going out of his way to study with this woman? Huh? So yeah, I think he wanted to get something going with her, and maybe he did even. Who knows? There's some contorted, twisted up things in the Jehovah's Witness congregations for sure. But now I look back and I can understand why there was some funk every time I got into the back seat of their car. They had a huge tuna boat, huge black, was it a Dodge or a Plymouth? That thing was so dang old. And when you heard it coming down the street, it had so many things that he constantly had to work on it to keep it running. He constantly had to keep that old thing to keep it, constantly worked on it. That thing was old. I think it was 30 years old. It was time for him to get a new car, but he was so poor. He was so poor he couldn't afford a car. So yeah, but now I can understand that tension. And he probably did some of this manipulation that we talked about on the wife, and it went back and forth. She resented him. One time he asked these stupid questions during the book study. He asked this really crazy question. And it was a part about the wife rendering her duty and submitting to the head, and they had covered paragraphs on that, right? So then he asked this weird question that is not in the book. He says, I want to know about the wives here. What would the wives give their husband? What grade would the wives give their husband? And all the wives and the women, everybody really, we all like kind of looked at each other like, huh? And he always had these off the wall things he would say that were not part of the program. So nobody was going to answer that question. Like, what is this? Is this really about the book study, or is this like a personal thing between you and your wife? Well, sure enough, nobody was touching that one, So the wife raises her hand, and she raises that one index finger. The hand I told you earlier, that one where you point at somebody, except she has it up at the sky, up at Jehovah. Yup. She raises her hand up at Jehovah because she's going to invoke by the power of Grayskull, by the power of Jehovah. She's going to invoke this. Yup. She was the only one raising her hand. And then he reluctantly called on her, and he says, okay, Frazier. And she says, I'll give all the brothers an F. I'll give all the brothers an F because they don't know how to treat their wife. When she just went off, she was giving all of the men right there an F. And she said why? Because they don't know how to treat their All right, everybody. That's it. I got to go. Thank you for tuning in. We have 10 people watching. Love you guys. I appreciate everybody. Remember to have a happy holiday season. Waking Possum, Evie Brooklyn, Neil Tucker, and everybody, 401 Big Boss, everybody that's here, JW Crises. Appreciate what everybody's doing. And, it's okay to do activism the way you're doing it. It's okay if you don't work with everybody. We're not all a good match. We're just not all a good match. Okay. If I wasn't myself, I probably wouldn't be a good match with myself. But unfortunately, I can't get away from myself, right? You can't either. You can't get away from yourself. So we're just gonna have to do what we're gonna have to do. All right, everyone. Take care. Love you, honeybee. All right. Should I have some outro music? Okay, let me see what we can play. I don't want to play any Christmas music, though. Okay, let's see. Oh, this one here is nice. Let's see. Bad and Bougie.
Raindrops, drop top, smoking on cooking the hot box, fucking on your bitch, shit, that. Cooking up dope in the crock pot. We came from nothing to something, bruh. I don't trust nobody, get the I love the gang and they come for ya. My bitch is bad and bougie, cooking up dope with the Uzi. My hit is a savage, ruthless. We got 30s and 100 rounds too. So my bitch is bad and bougie, cooking up dope with the Uzi. My hit is a savage, ruthless. We got 30s and 100 rounds too. Willie Well. Rackets on rackets, got backings on backings. I'm riding around in a coupe. I take your bitch right from you. Bitch, I'm a dog. Beat the whole walls lows, then hop in the frog. I tell that bitch it can come for me. Swear all these hitters is under me. They hating the devil, keep jumping me. Bankrolls on me, keep me company. Hey, needed the most. Pull up and ghost. My diamond's a choker. Holding the fire with no holster. Break the roll, the diamond's cold. It's a rolling, not a mule. Tapping on them like the usual. Magic with the brick to voodoo. Courtside with a bad bitch. Then I send that bitch an Uber. Young rich plus I'm bougie. Trying to make my life a movie. Raindrops, drop top. Smoking on cooking a hot box. Fucking on your bitch, she a thot. Cooking up dope in the crock pot. We came from nothing to something, bruh. I don't trust nobody, grip the Call up the gang and they come for ya. Cry me a river, give you a my bitch is bad and bougie. Whipping up dope with the Uzi. My hit is a savage, ruthless. We got 30s and 100 rounds too. My bitch is bad and bougie, cooking up dope with the Uzi. My hit is a savage, ruthless. We got 30s and 100 rounds too. Don't on nobody, on nobody. Always on the job. I got
About to sign out.
Got my city fucking with me.